Everyone should be in now.
Great, thank you, Eleanor. Good evening. I am calling this public hearing to order in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGLC 131, Section 40, and the Boston Wetlands Ordinance, Boston City Code Ordinances, Chapter 7-1.4. The Boston Conservation Commission will hold a virtual public hearing this evening on August 19th, 2026, to review the following projects to determine what conditions, if any, the commission will impose in order to protect the interest of the public and private water supply, groundwater, prevention of pollution, flood control, prevention of storm damage, protection of fisheries and land containing shellfish, and protection of wildlife habitat. Tonight, the commission will be holding this public hearing, which will be followed by a regular meeting. And in accordance with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Conservation Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Additionally, the meeting is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please turn off your video. Members of the public may have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand or type in the chat in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute yourself, or send your questions to staff via email at cc@boston.gov. For the record, my name is Michael Parker, Chair of the Commission. Could staff please identify themselves?
Elena Itamari with the Environment Department.
Dee Dee Hernandez with the Environment Department.
Hussein Tisawala with the Environment Department.
Great, thank you. Now I'll call the roll of commissioners present. Commissioner Sullivan.
John Sullivan.
Commissioner Linay.
Amy Linay.
Commissioner Wilson.
Mike Wilson.
Commissioner Estes Margiazzi.
Steve Estes Margiassi.
Commissioner Herbst.
Ian Herbst.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so first item this evening on the agenda is notice of intent for DEP file number 0062134 in Boston, file number 2026031 from Weston and Sampson Engineers, Inc. on behalf of the City of Boston Parks and Recreation Department for the proposed installation of a new arena at the Franklin Park Maintenance Yard, 275 Canterbury Street in Roxbury, Mass. Resource area 100-foot buffer to BVW. This has been continued from the August 5th, 2026 hearing. So who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Hi, Chair. Luis Perez de Marizi, Executive Director of Franklin Park. We also have Kevin Bogle from our Capital
Design
division.
and construction. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we also have Weston and Sampson engineers on the line as well.
Okay, do you have your stormwater engineer?
We do, yes.
Fantastic.
Aaron, would you mind introducing yourself?
Good evening. I'm Aaron Glutzloka with Weston and Sampson, and I am the civil engineer who's working on this project.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so where we left it last time, Luis, we had some questions for you regarding stormwater and other issues about how water flows through the site, stormwater management components here, and I see that you have responded fairly lengthy letter, maybe it's 4 or 5 pages to 9 points here. Did you want to take it from there?
Yes, Aaron can certainly take the lead on the presentation and going through the site's hydrology as well as the proposed stormwater improvements, along with how the team met the stormwater standards.
Okay, before we go on, I'm sorry. I just want to know Commissioner Linay is recusing herself from this hearing as she's an employee of Parks and Recreation Department.
Thank you, Chair. And Aaron, feel free to go ahead with your presentation.
Sure. Well, so in the vicinity of the project area in the maintenance yard, water primarily flows from in a westerly direction. The park yard to the east and the north is situated much higher, and that area is captured in an existing stormwater management system on site. So
And
approximately
Aaron,
two-thirds.
and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Do we have a slide that can orient us here? Or Dee Dee, is there something that we can look at while Aaron's describing? Okay.
Perfect. So the area immediately around the paddock, the horse paddocks, this area sheets overland. It's not captured in the stormwater management system. And it flows in a westerly direction towards the wetland. Now, under proposed conditions, the drainage patterns are generally going to be the same, except we're proposing 2 swales around the structure that you've had questions about. So the water is going to be rerouted around the horse arena, and it's still going to flow in the same general drainage pattern and drain overland towards the wetlands to the west. So these swales are, they're not so much swales, especially in the front of the building. It's more just a grading feature to keep water from running beneath the tent structure. It's important for several reasons. One is, muddy conditions is bad for the horses. Horses can sustain injuries if they're training on muddy, sloppy ground. So we want to keep the area beneath the tent as dry as possible. The swale, the longer swale, to the south on the page, it's to the south right here. It's actually to the east, which wraps around the back of the structure. That's designed to handle up to a 25-year storm event. And again, we're trying to keep the water from getting under the tent. For a secondary reason, we don't want horse dung washing away with the stormwater, so it's environmentally better this way. As it flows, drains down the swale to the rear of the structure to the south, we're proposing a culvert pipe beneath the driveway. Well, not really a driveway, just an access way to the tent so they can get vehicles in there, where it will enter the wetlands. There's 2, well, it's one greater wetland complex, but it's connected via a HDPE culvert underneath the driveway. So it will then enter the upper wetland and then flow through the culvert into the main wetland complex. So the paddock structure itself will produce a slight increase in peak discharge rates compared to existing conditions. It's currently bare soil, but this increase to peak discharge rates is approximately a little less than 0.2 of a CFS. It's pretty consistent across all the storm events that we modeled, which would be the 2, 10, 25, and the 100-year storm event. Surrounding this tent structure is going to be supported by a concrete grade beam. And surrounding the grade beam, there'll be 1 foot of stone around both sides and the bottom. So when water sheets off the top of the tent, it's going to collect in the stone trench along the perimeter of it. Some of that water is going to infiltrate. When it overtops, the water is just going to flow out the top of the stone, and which is going to act as a level spreader. So it won't be concentrated flow with any high velocities. And then it's going to flow overland towards the wetland. So there's going to be a slight increase from, in peak discharge rates because of the tent structure. But during the course of this project, we're going to be removing approximately 1,150 square feet of Bitconk pavement. And we're going to be converting approximately 14,300 square feet of bare soil into, grassed and vegetated areas as part of this project. So this project overall is going to provide, increased vegetated ground cover, And as a result of that, we're lowering the CN, the runoff coefficients of those areas. So there's going to be less stormwater. The stormwater is going to flow slower through the vegetation than it would across the bare soil. More of it's going to be allowed to infiltrate, and it's going to offset the effects, the increased, peak discharge rates as a result of the tent. So we have our modeling indicates that there'll be a slight decrease in peak discharge rates during the 2-year storm event, the 10-year storm event, and actually across all 4 storm events. Sorry, I thought we matched them on the 100, but there'll be a slight decrease overall. Additionally, with the vegetated areas, there's a lot of erosion issues right now in the paddock. A lot of soil on site gets washed straight into the wetlands, which isn't very good for the health of the wetlands. So this project is going to stabilize a lot of areas closest to the wetland, and it's going to control erosion and preserve the health, help preserve the health of the wetland in the future. So there was a question about, if an inch of rain fell in 15 minutes, how do you plan to hold that much water back? We're not proposing any detention here on site at all. We designed, we took this approach with stormwater management to meet the 10 Mass DEP standards. And really the 4 biggest are, no untreated discharges, mitigating peak discharges, not increasing, peak discharge rates post-development compared to pre-development, water quality treatment, and groundwater recharge. So we aren't proposing any new pollutant generating impervious surfaces as part of this project. The tent structure itself, all runoff from the tent structure, as far as DEP is concerned in the stormwater handbook, that is clean stormwater runoff. So that doesn't need to be treated. So we don't need to provide any sort of water quality treatment, and we don't, and we're not creating any new untreated discharges. Now, it leaves us with peak discharge mitigation. Now, I already spoke a bit about the strategy we're taking there. We're going to try to improve the existing conditions around the project area to reduce the volume and the rate of runoff coming across the site by using vegetation and taking account for the stone trench around the base of the structure. And for groundwater recharge, we aim to meet Boston Water and Sewer Company's groundwater recharge requirements, which requires, an equivalent storage volume to 1 inch of rainfall over the impervious surface on site. And we're accomplishing that with the stone trench around the base of the structure. Now, okay, I already kind of touched on how the site is hydraulically connected. I didn't go into too much detail about the existing infrastructure on site, but I kind of gave you the general overview. About 2/3 of the site drains to the maintenance yards, stormwater infrastructure. That discharges directly to the wetlands through 3 existing stormwater discharge points, with the remainder of the site, flowing overland, as well as the 2 wetlands being connected hydraulically via a HDPE pipe. And we touched on how the swales are going to drain across the site and not change the existing drainage patterns. So there's not going to be any impact to the existing wetland as a result of this project. Peak discharge rates across the 4 storm events are being decreased. However, there will be a slight increase in volume, stormwater volume, during certain storm events. During the 2 smaller storm events we model, the 2-year and the 10-year, there is a increase during the 2-year of approximately 200 cubic feet of water. During the 10-year storm event, there is approximately a 30 cubic foot increase in the volume of water that goes to the wetland. And during the 25 and the 100-year storm events, there's actually a decrease in the volume of water that goes to the wetlands. We're accomplishing this by slowing the water down as it sheets across the site with the use of vegetation. The water doesn't run straight to the wetland as quickly, and some of it infiltrates. Now, the wetland has an existing 10-inch PVC pipe outlet, which connects to city infrastructure in Morton Street. During the smaller storm events, well, the bottom line is that even the increase during the smaller storm events, it doesn't have any sort of meaningful, it doesn't provide any sort of meaningful change to the surface water elevations in the wetland. And the functionality of the wetland will be preserved. It's going to function exactly the same way. We're minimizing the rate at which water flows into the wetland. So when it engages that outlet, it can't rise any higher than it does currently. Does anyone have any questions?
Sure, we certainly do. Thank you. When you talk about the peak discharge rates and all of that, those are minimal, like the changes, right? They're like minuscule, so they're not significant, correct?
That is correct. We're
Okay.
talking during
Yeah,
the 2-year
like-
storm event, pre-development has a 24.85 CFS discharge rate. Post-development is a 24.82. So we're talking a 300ths reduction.
Yeah.
The largest it gets is during the 100-year storm event, and it's 1700ths of a CFS.
Okay. Thank you. So, a couple other quick questions. Looks like you were able to locate a backflow preventer.
Yes, there is a backflow preventer and a meter vault on site.
Okay. And Luis, you are in the midst of moving the wood chip pile. And You're going to
Yes.
let us know where you're going to put it after?
Yes, we are. And actually, toward the end, we have a slide deck that kind of shows the progress that we've done so far.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to, Commissioner Sullivan, if you don't mind, I think I'll just go directly to you. I'm looking at these questions. At least 6 of the 9 questions we asked came from you. So I think it makes sense for you to lead this discussion, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I'll be damned if I remember what the 6 questions were, but I'm sure you can read them again. But a couple of real quick ones on you mentioned that the stone that's be surrounding the paddock has the equivalent storage volume of the roof for the 1-inch rainstorm,
Yes.
but it's really not holding it, right? Because isn't that also being used, that stone being used as a culvert for the upstream water? I mean, the water that's sheet flowing towards the wetlands today, isn't this stone that you built around the paddock actually the conduit to take that water, get it around that area? And so the stone is actually a pipe.
If you're talking about the stone between at the edge of the parking lot between the paddock, that's just for stabilization purposes, stabilize the ground. When I'm talking of the crushed stone that's going to store water equivalent to the runoff from the top
Yeah.
of the roof, it's
Yeah.
it's around when they install the support structure, the foundation for the tent.
Yeah.
They're going to over excavate it 1 foot on each side. the top and the bottom. Well, I mean, sorry, the bottom and the two sides. They're going to
Yeah.
over excavate 1 foot and they're going to backfill that with crushed stone.
So you've done that calculation showing that the 1 inch needs so many cubic feet and that 30% of that area of filled with crushed stone is equal to that volume.
Yes, we have it in the stormwater report and
I can go back and look at it. I didn't
yeah,
see
the
it.
calculations are in the stormwater report. I don't have the required
Yeah.
volume, but I have the volume provided.
And one of the questions I had asked was where does the water go? But I already knew that answer, the 10-inch that comes to the city system. And how much water can you hold in that wetlands? What storm can be held on site before it hits the 10-inch that goes in and goes into the Canterbury Brook?
I did not calculate that. I don't have
Do
that
you-
calculation right now.
Right. Do you know what the invert is? I mean, is it taking water immediately? So the wetlands are simply something that is a pass-through for the stormwater on the site?
We only have it on record plans right now.
Yeah.
That's something that we were planning on doing, going out to site and measuring the invert.
Yeah, because what we could do is we could put a 90-degree elbow on it and simply raise the invert of the outlet pipe so that the wetlands actually stored at least the 10-year storm, if not the 25-year storm on site. They could then store the water and that could slowly, in a day or two, infiltrate down. Anything higher than that would be taken off by the city system. Because I recall back when they did this way back when, back Mayor Menino days, they were supposed to have it so that the wetlands were actually wetlands and storage. So most of the rainfalls were 1 inch or less, so they'd work like a regular wetlands. But it was also be storage to keep the water from the Canterbury Brook and causing downstream issues. And so I had assumed you guys had from old calcs what the storage volume of that wetland was. And we'd be able to, continue to protect downstream.
Well, yeah, that's feasible, but we are reducing, we're not increasing rates of flow outside of the wetland. So any rates of flow that currently flow through that pipe would actually be lowered
Yeah.
because we're lowering discharge rates already. So, and there's
Yeah.
a certain volume of water that's, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, maybe our permitting team can check in. There's always standing water in that wetland, right? So
And that
there might
increases
be
the health of
questions
the
about how
wetland.
much water
Yeah.
could actually infiltrate into the bottom of that, through the bottom of that pond. At one time, I think when it was originally installed, there was a stormwater basin historically, correct?
Yep.
But it's now turned into a wetland over time. So I'd imagine that the reason the wetland expanded and the reason it's inundated most of the time is because water doesn't exfiltrate out the bottom of it very efficiently.
So you're saying it's inundated. Is it a foot of water? Is it 6 inches? Is it mucky? Is it, or if you don't know, you don't know. I'm just,
Yeah, I can't answer that. I don't know, but every time I've been there, there's been water in the bottom of that basin.
It's also Commissioner Sullivan very overgrown with Phragmites, so it's very hard to gauge, what the depth of the water that's in there is. So I think to your point, though, we could continue doing some additional investigation of the wetland, especially, as the Phragmites dies down. And as we get a contractor in to work on the paddock, I think we could certainly do some additional investigation on that invert that goes
Yeah.
out.
yeah, because remember, you got a 10-inch pipe going there. And if you get weeds, you get broken Phragmites, you get other debris, it can block that 10-inch pipe. And that's what I was just curious, what is your holding capacity? So that later we don't have equipment going through that wetlands, just trying to free up a 10-inch pipe, because that's way on the other side of the wetland,
Right.
over by Morton Street. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Our records just show it goes somewhere in there, but we can't get the invert or anything else.
Yeah, that's something we have to kind of get in our waders and sort of mug through there, but it's pretty overgrown. It's hard to get to, but I think we can, especially late fall into the winter when
Yep.
when some of that dies down, we can certainly do more evaluation of that area.
Yep.
So Commissioner Sullivan, what would this look like as far as a special condition here? Investigate the feasibility of revamping the infrastructure, adding an elbow, what?
Yeah, investigate of using the wetlands as a storage detention. That's what it
Yep.
would be, storage detention. And, there's several ways they can do it. They can put an elbow and then make it perforated so that it isn't equivalent to a 10-inch, but it would slowly take the water down. It would slow it down.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave
Right.
it general.
Yeah,
Investigate use of
you
the
understand what I'm
wetlands
saying,
for-
Aaron? What I'm saying, if you put a 90 on it and it had some 1-inch holes in it,
No, yes, I do
yeah, the
understand.
water would store there, and then slowly over time, leaking through the 1-inch holes, it would lower itself down without causing harm to the whole area. I don't know what the elevations are compared to the paddock to the elevation of the water sitting in the wetlands today. Is there a 2-foot drop, or is it do you know?
So is the end result you want to slow down the rate at which water is flowing out
Yeah.
into the city infrastructure?
Yeah,
Okay.
Essentially
Because
an
we'll-
outlet control structure is what
that's
you're
exactly
looking
what it
for.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
Using an area you have that's useless for anything you need it for, it would be a detention pond that would detain the water during the storm and slowly release it over a day or two. And that gives the Canterbury Brook, something the city's working on, more time to move its water through. We're looking at it to be a detention pond is what it is. But then it would slowly leak back into the pipe. And then if it rises up too high, you get the full capacity of a 10-inch. It'd be like an overflow weir.
Question, commissioners, on that front, how would that look like in terms of the process? It would be, that would be an order of conditions that would be issued, and then we would have to provide as-built, I'm assuming, or our findings from
Correct.
that evaluation? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Yep.
You'd investigate. I realize you don't have the numbers now. I was hoping to be able to find the invert of that pipe and find the elevation of the floor of the paddock and then tell you you got 2 feet. So you have 2 feet of storage. That would be a good thing. We could figure out how many storms that would take. It slows down in the entire system. And like you're representing a city agency, and we're supposed to be working towards the common good of slowing down stormwater in the future.
That
And
makes
if it's
sense.
not going to do you any harm, which it may not, because you can store it, it's not a big deal.
I think we can make that work.
great. Commissioner Sullivan, what else?
Well, that's about it. That was my concern. It was the backflow preventer was a big concern of mine. But they located that. The snow pile, where they're going to put the snow pile, is always a concern because, we always call snow pure and beautiful till we add 8,000 pounds of salt and sand because that's what we do. And then that runs off, and you got to capture that stuff so it doesn't get in the wetlands. We're trying to protect these wetlands also.
We have some ideas on the snow piles, specifically the ones that the snow that we remove off of the parking lot and the driveway immediately around the paddock. So we have some thoughts around that. We'd love to get more input from you all as well.
Okay.
Yeah, again, you got a resource there, and if you salt the hell out of it, what you need to do during a snowstorm, you got to keep your people safe. I got it. We got to figure out when it goes to melt, how we're going to control that particular super salty. Because I think your Phragmites love salt. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's probably why it's
So.
taking hold.
Okay, good point. Luis, how long would it take you to work through this snow storage issue?
We have some slides that relate to the administrative action that we can kind of go through and show you all, but I mean, that's a fairly straightforward request to fulfill.
Okay.
We had a pretty significant snowy winter, so we have some info that we can provide as to where we put snow and whether that makes sense for you all as it pertains to the wetlands.
Okay. Okay. Because it occurs to me, I don't know if this gets continued, and let's say we're back in 2 weeks, if you can have more robust information on that within 2 weeks, or it could be a special condition that you would submit a snow management plan that meets the satisfaction of staff and maybe a commissioner or two prior to construction. So we'll just put a pin in that for now.
Okay.
Elena, did you have anything before I go back to commissioners?
Thank you. No, this discussion has covered anything I was going to bring up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, no further questions. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Smargiassi?
I'm satisfied that the questions we had about movement of water on site have been pretty well resolved. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Herbst?
Just one stormwater question. In your answer to question 2, you talked about it when there's overflow, that the stormwater would flow across sand and stone dust and be being transported to the wetlands. And I'll take advice from Commissioner Sullivan, but that didn't sound like that would be something we would want to have happen. So I wanted to ask about that.
Well, the stone dust and the sand surface, it's on the west side of the paddock, between the paddock side closest to the wetland. That area is an outdoor,
An
forgive me if I use
isolation.
the wrong terminology. Yeah, isolation pen for
Isolation
the
pen.
horses. So the horses will be exercised outside in that area. So it's going to be, that is a surface material that is beneficial for the horses. It's good. It's a good material for them to walk on. It's not a compacted material. It's going to be a very loose stone and like stone dust and sand mixture. So it'll have a higher porosity. So, additionally, water sheeting off that side, a lot more of it will infiltrate into the stone dust in the sand. And the way this surface is constructed, this is a relatively thin layer, I believe maybe about 3 inches of the stone dust and the sand mixture on top of a filter fabric with a crushed stone base underneath that. So it's designed to provide, it's a very well draining surface.
Okay.
So there won't be transport of sand and stone dust to the wetland. Plus the adjacent walls will be set slightly higher than the surface of the stone dust. So it will act as a barrier if any were to get washed over.
Right. That was my concern. Could we go back to a slide that shows the paddock and the proposal? Well, it might be hard for any of us to see. So my other concern is, and I raised this at our last session, and I know it's a little bit tricky because we're going back and forth. We're going to talk about some of the other issues later in the meeting, but my interest is in creating some kind of a buffer or space for the little small wetlands that's been isolated that you're working very close to. And I believe you're suggesting that you're going to pull back the parking lot some, but you're showing this 5-foot gravel strip next to the wetlands. And I guess I'm just wondering, it could be a conversation for after this, but my assumption was that we were going to open that up some, that you wouldn't be putting gravel in there, that we were pulling back the parking lot, that would be a different kind of surface. And related to that, I'm wondering, I see the sort of the inner square, I assume, is the new structure. And then you've got sort of the outer square, which is the whole paddock, but you're still just directly up against the wetlands. And so I'm wondering whether that outer paddock right there at the wetlands really has to go up against the wetlands the way it does, or whether we can get a little relief there from that.
Well, unfortunately, with the size of the structure, we kept the footprint. We're only proposing work from the fence line in within the paddock. So we're not pushing the wall out any further than where the existing fence is. And from an operational perspective, this is what the park ranger and the BPRD needs for this paddock to function as intended. It needs a certain amount of space around the exterior of the tent, so they're able to get vehicles around 3 sides of the tent. Well, 4 sides in reality. It's a little pinched on the east side, but they need access with vehicles so they can perform maintenance to the tent structure itself and the site.
I see. Well, perhaps then all the more important, my concerns about on the other side, where those things are proposed.
And to just touch on that, these two issues are very closely interrelated here. So we're presenting this design as is, as if nothing is changing with the parking lot. We're just looking at it the way the site sits existing, under existing conditions right now. Depending on the outcome of the enforcement order and whatever changes are potentially made to the parking lot are decided upon, then we would revise this design slightly to remove whatever it may be, but we'll make design changes then as a result of whatever happens with the parking lot.
I think, Aaron, I could speak to that. Because the notice of intent for the horse paddock is one thing, and then the parking lot issues that we're going to be talking about later, and we talked about last time, is we're trying to keep those separate, even though it's one site, right? And they're certainly interconnected. It's a little challenging to show what the proposed condition for the parking lot situation is as it relates to the paddock, when it's not really tied to the NOI. So that's sort of, I think, Commissioner Herbst, where we're trying to balance what's needed for this NOI versus what is the most ideal scenario for the enforcement order and the
agree.
parking lot fix.
It's a little tricky. I just don't want to be in the position of approving something in an NOI that I think we're going to turn around and say can't be there. So we're just trying to figure out how procedurally how we do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tricky. I mean, it's almost like they shouldn't be separated at this point, but what's come
Here's
to
one-
mind is a special condition that the pending the outcome of the enforcement order, that I think it's the compacted gravel way in the parking lot would be, like, the gravel way may be eliminated, right? And the parking lot would be taken back, and I think the proposal on the table, without getting ahead of ourselves here, is 14 spaces to create a buffer between the parking lot and the BVW.
Chair, I think that sounds reasonable. We, as we continue to evaluate the paddock design, I think we can make some minor modifications outside of the 100-foot buffer on the other side and completely forego that rear drive for vehicular access, if that's something that you all are open to, establishing a special condition. That way, when we talk about the parking lot, we have more of a blank canvas and less of a buffer or blurred line, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Herbst, what's your reaction to that?
I don't know what to say. I just don't know how to make it work as best we can. We are going to talk about it later in the meeting. Is it permissible to come back to this, to continue this now and come back to it later this evening, or no?
No, we're going to be in a different type of hearing.
Yeah.
By then, we go to our regular meeting.
Yeah. And I
So
don't know what the time constraints are, whether we could go another
Yeah.
2 weeks and have the conversation and finish this up in 2 weeks. Or
Yeah, so Luis, the other thing that strikes me is I think from what you've given us and what you've said so far this evening, we could make pretty good headway on the enforcement order discussion tonight, which would inform the NOI. So if it feels like if you could come back in 2 weeks for the NOI after we have more of a discussion on the EO, that feels like we could wrap things up pretty neatly. Is there, I know there's a sense of urgency to get this work started, but we're going towards Labor Day. Does it seriously impact any of your logistics if we continued the NOI for 2 more weeks?
The only, I guess, the two impacts that this would cause, I think, is just the bidding of the project would be later on, and we could meet, the winter, which may or may not be similar to last winter, which could pose some delays. And then obviously we want to, continue moving through the design, but we also want to get it right. So I would say that the impacts are less concerning than getting this right.
Okay. Okay.
So
I-
as much as I love for an order of conditions to be issued today, I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker or the end of the world for us to come back in a couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Okay, Elena, did you see any hands raised from the public? I don't.
I see no hands raised, and we haven't received anything in our inbox or the chat either.
Okay, so with that, I'd entertain a motion to continue this hearing.
So moved.
Do you have a second? Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Smargiassi,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess we'll see in about an hour or two, and hopefully an hour and not 2, but okay. I needed to just in case there's anybody from the public here there are 3 items that have been continued at the request of the applicant. So let me read those out right now in case you're here for them. Continued for another 2 weeks are notice of intent for unassigned DEP file number from Engineering Alliance on behalf of John Ibrahim for the proposed removal of the paver stone area and replacement with a cedar mixed crushed stone at 90 Ashley Street in East Boston. Notice of intent for DEP file number 0062141 from Childs Engineering on behalf of the Massachusetts Port Authority to conduct up to 101 soil borings, 27 test pits, and 20-inch water soil samples at the North Jetty and South Boston waterfront. And then notice of intent for DEP file number 0062139 and Boston file number 2026-035 from CDM Smith Inc. on behalf of the Boston Parks and Rec Department for the proposed reactivation of an existing well for irrigation purposes at the George Wright Golf Course in Hyde Park. So we'll go to our next item, which is notice of intent for DEP file 0062137 from Foth Infrastructure and Environment LLC on behalf of the Massachusetts Port Authority for the proposed removal and replacement of concrete decking and repairs to underdeck spalling and concrete beams at Black Falcon Terminal, 88 Black Falcon Avenue, South Boston waterfront. Resource areas land subject to coastal storm flowage, designated port area, 100-foot buffer to coastal bank. This was continued from the August 5th, 2026 hearing. We had a full hearing. The only thing that prevented moving this forward with an order of conditions was DEP had not assigned a file number. So that being said, do any of the commissioners have any questions on this before I look for a motion?
No.
No.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions and close the hearing with a special condition that the dust and debris containment plan will be submitted to staff prior to construction.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Linay,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Smargiassi,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That carries 6-0. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, notice of intent for DEP file number 006-2138 and Boston file number 2026-034 from Goddard Consulting LLC on behalf of View Contracting for the proposed construction of a 4-story apartment building with associated water management, garage, decks, and minor landscaping at 97 North Washington Street in the North End. Resource areas land subject to coastal storm flowage. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So this is a DEP notice sent for 97 North Washington Street, DEP 62138. DEP did issue a file number with no comments. This is a project that has to do with land subject to storms coastal flowage. Can I go to the next slide? So this is the property that is subject to this notice of intent. You can see it's bounded to the west by North Washington Street. To the north and south, it is bounded by structures, and to the east, there is a paved parking area directly behind the property itself. The next slide will show you additional photographs of the area. This is existing additions. Right now, it's being used as an outdoor dining area by the adjacent restaurant. So you can see in photo 1, that's the entrance. It's kind of gated off just for security reasons at night. Photo 2 shows you inside. The entire lot is paved with asphalt. And there's that one large tree in the front right of photo 1 there. Again, photos 3 and 4 are from the back. So photo 3 is the rear property, looking at the rear gate, the rear property line, which is that fence. The fence is the actual rear property line of the lot subject to this notice of intent. And then photo 4 is just, again, looking from over the back of that chain link, that fence there at the outdoor patio area. Next slide. So again, this notice of intent is for the land subject to coastal storm flowage, about 125 square feet on the front of the property right off of North Washington Street. Existing conditions, we have about 995 square feet, 100% impervious, no stormwater management on the property. We're proposing to reduce impervious, provide landscaping in the back, and with a new building in the front. We'll have a white roof, and the stormwater has double the capacity required, and that's been reviewed by the Boston Water Sewer Commission. Next slide will show you the site plan itself. So this is the site plan itself. Again, it's a very small lot, but basically you have a building that basically is going to continue the frontage on the left and right properties in terms of just continued building structure. There it'll have an entrance, a garage, drive under the first floor of the structure. In the back, you'll have a backyard with a deck, spiral staircase for egress for all 3 floors. In the rear, underneath the landscaping, there is a proposed stormwater under infiltration structure. It's been designed by Spruhung Engineering. Again, it's gone through the Boston Water Sewer Commission already for compliance. It's twice the size that's required, and that all overflows to the street. Typical utility connections to the street: water, gas, and sewer. Again, the existing property is all pavement. New property is going to be 76% impervious and then 24% pervious in the back, with some landscaping and a little bit of green space to add to the ability for people to be outside and enjoy a little bit of green space in the city of Boston. The next 2 sheets are just additional details of the project itself, infiltration system, the utility connections, and how they would tie in. The next sheet, again, is additional details as well. And then I have other slides that have the stormwater report, this is the letter from the Boston Sewer Water Commission, along with just the stormwater narrative, should there be any questions about particularly the stormwater design itself. But that's really the project in a nutshell. It's pretty straightforward, very small project in terms of its scope and the location.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. So a couple quick questions. Let's see. Have you been through zoning? Did this need any zoning relief?
To my knowledge, I don't believe we needed zoning relief on this parcel. I'm just cross-checking my files just to see if there's anything else I didn't.
Did it go through small project review? Article 37 with BPDA? Small project
That is
review
one
article.
question I do not know. The applicant is on the call.
Great.
Abdu.
Commissioner Abdul Khalil here with View Contracting.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good,
Thank
good.
you
So
for-
did you need zoning relief? Do you have your zoning relief? Go ahead.
I have not particularly went to been directed by anybody on ISD to go for zoning so far. What has been flagged is the we're in a flood zone and in a conservation zone. We did get the Boston Water and Sewer approval. This was submitted as part of the presentation, and this is the second part. To my knowledge, we are halfway through the process of the permit. So to your question, if there are more, I cannot confirm, but to what I have been told so far is only these two parts.
Okay. Okay. So just to be clear, you applied for a building permit and they told you to come to conservation. Okay. And they didn't.
Boston Water and Sewer approval and
Right.
conservation. We're building according to code. We're not asking for any special permits. We're not going over the heights or building
Okay.
dimensions listed by code.
Okay, so no denial letter. Okay, sounds good. Okay, did you have to go through any small project review? Specifically, you have an Article 37 small project climate resiliency checklist here in our filing. Did you go through that review at the BPDA?
No.
Okay. Okay, so then I guess the questions I have, you are in a flood zone. What are the elevations of the first floor? So I guess what I'm getting at here is that housing or habitation floors can't be, they have to be, I think it's 2 feet above the flood elevation in that area. And then as far as like your infrastructure,
Right.
gas,
Yeah,
and
the
things like
mechanical
that,
part.
they have to be elevated as well. So could someone speak to that, please?
Yep. So the mechanicals are all raised off the first floor. Again, the first floor is a walk-in with a garage with the raised utilities in the back. So the first floor is not a living space at all.
Great.
So that is a plus to the property. Everything else, all the living spaces are on the first, second, third, and fourth floors of the structure itself. And fifth floor. My apologies. So it's 2 units, 2 floors per unit. That's the plan there. So again, yeah, there's no living space on the first floor, and the utilities are all raised above the floodplain. Again, the floodplain here being basically right at the curb, almost basically, that's flooding the street itself.
Right. Okay. And when I first looked at this, the stormwater report in an area or two mentioned East Boston, so we got that fixed, right?
Correct. Yeah, the engineer just struck that from the report.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Elena, do you have anything on this?
Thank you. Yes, I think the only outstanding question that we had was following the site visit, we had asked about the one existing tree that was on site, and the project team had said that that could be replaced. I just wasn't sure where there would really realistically be room to replant that tree. So I just wanted to flag that as something that might not necessarily be feasible here.
Okay. Mark, Abdu, can we replace that tree?
Yeah, we do plan to replace the tree by planting in the backyard landscaped area. So we have an area there. The tree kind of has been kind of worked around in the front there. It's growing right up against the neighboring building. But our plan is to put at least one tree in the back. I think we talked about more than one, but I don't remember if you had your landscaper kind of think about how to best lay that backyard out.
Yeah, we are planning to replace it with multiple. It's actually going to be more than one. So there's going to be a built off landscaping around the back deck, and that should cover actually more than one space for a full tree to grow. So that to your question, Elena, that will be replacing the existing tree.
Excellent. Okay, so I think in that case, I would maybe just recommend if the commission wanted to consider a special condition for some sort of monitoring and potential requirement for a replacement of any trees that maybe don't survive the first 2 years following their planting.
Okay, that makes sense. And probably, and I don't know if we have the landscaping plan in the file here, but I think we need that before construction. So we need
And
to
we
stop-
would,
Yeah,
yeah, we have a requirement to have the final landscaping plan submitted to commission staff before any work commences. So that way, in case there are some minor changes, we'd be aware of that as well.
okay. And we have a light colored roof here. No, is not a possibility for a green roof?
Yeah, we talked with the architect. Green roof is not feasible here.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Sullivan,
I don't have any questions.
thank you. Commissioner Linay,
Don't have any other than the tree question, so thanks for asking that, Elena.
great. Commissioner Wilson,
Thank you.
okay. Commissioner Estes Margiazzi,
Nope, good conversation. Have what I need. Thank you.
Commissioner Herbst,
Nothing from me, thanks.
okay.
And Chair Parker,
Go ahead.
apologies. I did have a quick question. I actually was wondering if, in addition to the requirement for a warranty or a replacement requirement on the tree, if I could perhaps check in with a few of the commissioners to see what types of trees would be most likely to thrive in this type of environment.
Yes, I actually anticipated either Commissioner Linay or Wilson to mention that. So I'll go back to either one of those two. Any suggestions?
I mean, I think well, that would be interesting to get the landscape plan and see what they're proposing, but I think there's also resources. Our urban forestry department has recommended trees. They're primarily for street tree purposes, but that might be a good starting point. I'm assuming you'll want something relatively small since it's a tight, I think 10 feet setback, so.
Great. Okay. So maybe when we get the landscaping plan, one or both of you could take a quick look at it.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
We'll make a note to
Sounds
share
good.
that out.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands raised. Did you get any emails, Elena?
No hands, no emails.
Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions with a special condition that the landscaping plan and be submitted to staff prior to construction. And it would include well, the landscaping plan wouldn't include this, but also included in that condition would be monitoring of the tree or the landscaping, let's say the tree or the trees, to make sure that they take for 2 years.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Linay,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Estes Margiazzi,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst.
Aye.
I vote aye. So that carries 6-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Sure.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Okay, next item on the agenda. As a matter of fact, Commissioner Linay, I think we're getting into all parks from this point on. As I said, except for minutes and one COC. So if you would like to drop off, this might be a nice evening to recharge the batteries and come back stronger next week, in 2 weeks.
Appreciate that. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, okay, good night. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, notice of intent for DEP file number 006-2140 and Boston file number 2026-036 from Weston and Sampson Engineers on behalf of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department for the proposed reconstruction of Barry Playground, including upgrades to existing field, shade structures, site furnishings, a paved bicycle track, seawall repairs, and a resilient berm at 41 Medford Street in Charlestown. Resource areas, 25-foot waterfront area, coastal bank land subject to coastal storm flowage, and 100-foot buffer to coastal bank. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Hi, Kevin Bogle, landscape architect, project manager for Boston Parks and Recreation.
Great.
Hi, Regan Andriolo, with project manager with Weston Sampson.
Fantastic.
Anton Almeida, project manager, Weston Sampson.
James Pearson, civil engineer and stormwater engineer at Weston Sampson.
Okay. Okay.
Indrani Ghosh, resiliency lead at Weston Sampson.
Okay. We have a very full team. Thank you all for coming. Who's taking the lead, Kevin?
I'm just going to kick us off and first thank the commissioners and staff for all of the support for this project so far as we've prepared for this hearing. It's a very exciting project. We're turning basically a barren baseball field into a park that not only will serve the community from ages toddlers to age 99 with amenities, but also provide a vital piece of stormwater, seawater rise, sea surge, and stormwater infrastructure to protect the Charlestown waterfront. So thank you so much for hearing us tonight, and I'll pass it over to Regan.
Thanks. I'm actually going to kick it to our permitting team to do the first piece of this. Rihanna or Shelley?
Yep, I'll take it from here. You can go to, I think, 2 more slides.
Shelley, you're a little quiet, just an FYI.
Uh-oh. Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me better now? Thank you all for listening. So just a quick overview, like Kevin mentioned, this is a waterfront area. So Berry Playground is located in Charlestown along the Little Mystic Channel. Go to the next slide, please. And here's just an aerial locus. So as you can see right now, the site is pretty bare and it's very urban. I'm going to keep going through here. Next slide, please. And so a couple months ago, Rihanna and I did a delineation of the site, and we identified Coastal Beach on the site based on a combination of GIS data and field data. We approximated the landward limit of Coastal Bank, and then we also have the corresponding buffer zones on there. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So here is the flood map according to FEMA. It shows a little bit of the AE zone, but actually one more slide and I will show you we had surveyors go out to the site, and they actually identified that based on current elevations on the site, that much more of the project site was in land subject to coastal storm flowage. So in order to be conservative, this was the data that we used for all of our calculations and for all of our plan sets moving forward. So I think with that, I am going to turn it over to, let's see who's next, to Regan next.
Yep. Yeah, if you can flip to the next slide, please. Okay, so as this is a parks project, the key focus, the preliminary purpose of this project was to upgrade the existing amenities out there. As you saw from the overview, it's essentially just a softball field and not much else. So we wanted to maintain that use as that is popular, but also provide additional amenities along the perimeter, again, to serve a larger demographic age range and in the community. So we're doing upgrades to the existing athletic fields and amenities to improve those features that are already there, adding shade structures because currently there is no shade other than what's coming off of the Tobin, some new site furnishings, a paved connected walking path along the whole perimeter, trike track for our young neighbors here learning to ride their bikes, some formalized spectator seating, some minor seawall repairs, a resilient berm, which I'll jump to next, and native plantings. Next slide, please. So as we got into this project, Parks realized that this whole project was an opportunity to proactively plan for some longer term neighborhood-wide coastal resilience. And with the knowledge that the future resilient efforts along the seawall are being planned, Parks did not want to put in new improvements that would then be subsequently removed in the near future to accommodate flood protection measures. So instead, what our proposed design is incorporating a flood resilient berm, or at least a portion of it, into the fabric of the overall design, with the opportunity for later tie-ins to abutting properties on either end. So this provides us some near-term benefits to the park users, such as an elevated harbor walk for improved views of the water, of the Little Mystic Channel, and of the sports fields, and providing informal lawn seating along the slope. And then the long-term benefits would be including the future closure of the flood pathway to protect the park and the neighborhood assets. We have met with Army Corps, and they have preliminarily agreed that this location is a good candidate for a levee. That's what Army Corps calls a berm, and that this intervention would be appropriate within the CSRM plan for the Charlestown neighborhood. So we are planning to design this berm with Army Corps requirements in mind. So the berm itself will be elevated to a maximum of 5 feet to hit the design flood elevation of 22 in this area. We have done geotechnical borings. We were in front of the commission earlier this year for an RDA to do those borings to determine the best design for the berm. And then again, that elevation of 22 would be to the height of the future seawall on abutting properties. And then we have the opportunity for community tie-ins for passive and active recreation. Next slide, please. We will be doing some minor seawall repairs, only like on the land side. Basically, we're not doing anything from inside of the water, but currently the way that the seawall is, there's a lot of erosion and washout on the backside. You can even see from this image, there's a large gap that you can actually see the water through there. So from a safety consideration, we really want to be repairing that. Part of it will be fortifying and stabilizing the soil behind the wall so we don't have this continuous erosion. We're also going to be removing the chain link fence from the top of the seawall and then resetting a more ornamental fence behind the seawall to keep folks kind of away right from the edge and the top of that seawall. And then just small fixing of the scouring of the scour holes behind the wall and some minor repointing. Next slide, please. This you can see the overall site plan. Essentially, the whole center of the park is remaining as a natural turf softball field. So we'll be adding some amenities such as bleachers and dugouts that currently don't exist there now, a batting cage on the perimeter. But most notably, we're doing this connected loop around the entire perimeter. And this is actually something that came up quite a bit during our community meetings of people wanting that connection to circulate around the park. We have some small spectator seating overlook areas to the south along Medford Street. So you're elevated up, we're utilizing the existing grade to overlook the recreational facilities. And then as we move clockwise around, we have a few small fitness areas, a small 2 to 5 age play, slope play area. We have informal and formalized seating into the slope. Working around, we have a section that we've identified for a food forest, working with the Boston Food Forest Coalition. So we have an area identified for that. And then as we go parallel to the top there, that is where the harbor walk is and the resilient berm. So right now we're going to be sloping up to the top, and at the top of the berm we have shade structures that currently don't exist out there, a whole series of shade structures along the harbor walk. So that serves at your elevated location as a overview, spectator overlook down on the field, or to turn around and look out to the Little Mystic Channel. That slope going back down to the existing seawall. We'll have native plantings along the back there. Yeah, so that's the key most components. Jump to the next slide, please. The land subject to coastal storm flowage, as Shelley had noted, it does cover the majority of the site. So seeing it here in this context with the proposed improvements. Next slide, please. We do have stormwater management here. If there's questions on that, James can speak more to it in detail, but essentially the primary stormwater management practice here is a stone infiltration trench that provides the water quality treatment and recharge prior to discharge. And we have designed the system to treat the runoff to the proposed, to the maximum extent practicable. Next slide, please. I'm actually going to flip this over to Indrani to speak through the flood path analysis.
Yeah, thank you, Regan. And if you can advance, I think there's an animation. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So as part of this design, we completed a flood pathway analysis to understand not just whether the site floods, but also how the flood waters move through and around the site and whether the proposed improvements could change those flood pathways. So what we're showing here is the long-term condition using the city's 2070 planning horizon and the critical design flood elevation of 22 feet BCB, as Regan pointed out, or 15.5 NAVD 88. So on the left, what we're showing are existing conditions. At this elevation, the flood waters overtop the existing shoreline. This is projected in 2070 and could inundate much of the site, you know, with pathways extending inland from the Little Mystic Channel as shown here. And then on the right, what we're showing are proposed conditions. The resilient landscape berm that we're proposing, it raises the northern portion of the site and it provides a higher level of protection immediately behind the waterfront. However, the berm is not intended to function as an isolated flood barrier because it needs to tie back into existing grades at either ends, and floodwaters can still move around the berm from adjacent lower lying areas. So really the important point here is the finding here is that from this analysis is that the project does not create a new flood pathway, or it does not redirect floodwater towards the neighboring residential properties on Medford Street. And the broader flood pattern really continues to be controlled by the low-lying topography and the surrounding regional coastal flooding. And then the next slide essentially shows, this figure helps explain how the project has been designed with the city's long-term coastal resiliency strategy in mind. The berm is being constructed to meet the city's long-term design flood elevation for the Charlestown neighborhood. What is shown here is that are the future tie-ins, as Regan was explaining, and that's illustrated. These tie-ins are illustrative only, and they're outside the scope of this NOI, but really demonstrates how the park, how the berm could eventually connect with adjacent flood protection measures, and with those future connections in place, you know, the berm could become part of a more continuous protection along the Little Mystic Channel. And until those improvements occur, floodwaters can continue to enter around the ends of the project during those larger storm events. So it provides meaningful protection without worsening flood risk elsewhere. And it also does not preclude or create a barrier to the city's future resilience strategy. And with that, I'm turning it over to Shelley.
Yeah.
I'll take it back from here. Thank you, Regan and Indrani. So just briefly, I can go over our proposed resource area impacts. So our temporary numbers are all 0 just because all of our permanent and temporary impacts are happening in the same place. So again, just to be conservative, we considered all of the impacts permanent. There's going to be impacts from regrading and plantings from the park development. Let's see, next slide, please. So just to briefly go over the construction and resource area protections. So as seen on the plans that we submitted, we do have erosion and sediment controls, including compost filter tubes and catch basin inlet protection and a stabilized construction entrance that will be installed prior to any disturbance on site. All of these controls will be maintained throughout construction and then removed following site stabilization. As Regan mentioned, all of the seawall repairs are going to be conducted from the landward side. We're not anticipating any work in the Little Mystic Channel, in the water, or below the high tide line. We're staying up on the harbor walk. We do plan to revegetate all of the disturbed areas. And then lastly, construction access will be provided from Medford Street. So again, staying on the land. Next slide, please. So here's our compliance with performance standards. So we went through all of the Wetland Protection Act's performance standards in addition to the Boston Ordinance performance standards. We do not anticipate any impacts to coastal beach. We do not propose any impacts to coastal beach. Work within the buffer zone to coastal bank will not increase erosion or alter the form of the coastal beach. As Indrani mentioned, these are improvements. We do not anticipate any changes in the functions of land subject to coastal storm flowage, as the flood path analysis previously demonstrated. Again, all the proposed filling and grading is, in line with keeping storm damage prevention and flood control functions as they are. And again, we are just aiming to enhance long-term coastal resilience and be compatible with future neighborhood scale flood protection improvements. So one more slide, please. So lastly, in order to go a little bit more deeply into climate resiliency, so as we mentioned, this site is vulnerable to coastal flooding and, climate risk. But we are proactively thinking ahead. We're, as Regan mentioned, we're working with neighborhood groups and working with Army Corps in order to tie into future adjacent flood protection measures. Additional resilient measures include the seawall stabilization. We're doing a lot of native and salt-tolerant plantings, the increased tree and canopy shade, and the reconstructed harbor walk. So overall, this project is representing an initial phase in a broader Boston coastal resilience strategy. So I think with that, one more. And I think our project team is happy to take any questions from the commission at this point.
Great, thank you. Yes, this is very exciting. I happen to know this park fairly well. It's heavily used, and to see it finally coming to fruition here as a resiliency measure, it'll be up and going in time for the new BHA housing that's coming online. And that's just been an area of Charlestown that's in badly need of better recreational and open space. So this is fantastic. Kevin knows I'm skeptical about the game tables. That it'll be quiet enough directly under the Tobin Bridge, but I'm sure he'll figure that out at some point and pick the right place. I just have a few questions regarding the seawall. So I know that you had come in for some geotech borings before, and so I assume that was partially for the structural assessment on the existing seawall. So what confidence do you have that it can support the adjacent improvements over time?
Yeah, so where we are placing the berm, we've worked with our geotechnical team, and the toe of the slope for the berm is set back from the existing seawall. So we are not proposing any loads onto that seawall. We did that specifically. We didn't want to have to rebuild the seawall in any way. So we have set it back far enough that we feel confident that we are not going to be adding load to the seawall. And obviously it's urban fill. It's what we would expect out there. So part of the plan for the berm itself would be to do ground improvements throughout that whole area, which is where they kind of core in different, aggregate that stiffens up the ground underneath so that we don't have settlement of the berm as we're putting that load on. So aside from pressure on the seawall. So that is the plan right now. And we are working through that design with our geotechnical and structural engineers now.
Great, thank you, Regan. So you answered my second question. I noted that there was compressible fill below the berm, but you're going to be stabilizing it and reinforcing it. Okay.
Correct.
I think that you're also relying on stone columns beneath the berm. Will that affect the groundwater movement? And you already said no effect on the seawall, right?
Correct. Yep. Yep. And that's part of the reason, part of the fortification behind the ideas that we might be excavating, backfilling behind the wall with fabric and crushed stone so that we can, because our structural believes that's part of the reason for the washout and the erosion, the fines that keep moving through the wall with the tide, right? So we want to be able to stabilize that behind it, let the water run through, but not have those fines washing out. I'm not the expert on that, but that's kind of my understanding.
You sound like one. I'm convinced. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Elena, what do you have on this?
Yeah, we didn't have much to add, just noting that there are some site visit photos in the Drive folder for the Commission's review, and we have worked with the project team to finalize the draft conditions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan?
The drainage system of the existing field, is that in good condition now? And does it drain to the ocean or does it come to the municipal system?
Yeah, good question. So the drainage system right now, for the most part, drains straight out to the river. And we're going to continue that existing condition where we are going to be replacing all the piping within the park itself, though. There's one small area of the park towards the street that has historically drained towards the street, and we're also going to continue that condition as well.
Are you installing a new check valve tide gate chamber and all that?
So we do have an outlet control structure, but we can include a tide gate structure as part of the project. I don't know if we have it in the plans right now, but that is our intention. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be needed now with the tides today, but your tides in 15, 20 years may need it. So it's a minimum chamber big enough that you can put a device in there, get it out, maintain it, put it back in.
Yeah, one option we were considering was putting in tide gates on the outfalls themselves. We did that at Langone Playground where we have a tide gate structure there that has kind of like a cage thing around it, so that you can have kind of a trash rack and a tide gate all in one.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you can do that. You got to get at it. You remember, everything you build, some poor bastard's got to fix it. So
yeah,
whatever makes it easier for everybody to get to the thing, so that they will take care of it in the future. That's all.
Well, we will certainly defer to BWSC's preference if you do have a preference on that. So,
well, I'm giving you the hint that we're not going to fix it. So, making it easy for someone to get to it. That's all.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's all I had.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
Sorry, yeah, the one question you may have answered this in the NOI was in terms of the berm, like from say like flood insurance purposes and that sort of thing, was whether that was compliant with sort of the guidance that FEMA was developing with the city, that we've seen some stuff along Fort Point Channel there. I was trying to pull it up, but it's basically crashing the PDF, so I figured I'd just ask you guys.
I might be able to jump in here. So we surveyed LSCSF lines on site, but the actual FEMA designation line is outside of any project work that we're working in. So we are technically outside FEMA's jurisdiction, but in order to be conservative here, we designated the interior of the site land subject to coastal storm flowage based on our surveying data. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess in part. So basically, like what the condition that I was sort of alluding to is that in Fort Point Channel, that's in an existing FEMA designated area. So the berm that's going in basically needs to be, I don't know the exact construction methodology, but like clay core or like, somehow resistant to erosion, watertight, that sort of thing, in order to be certified as basically a baby levee or something like that.
Yes.
So for this project, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we're working through that, and we are going to be working with Army Corps specifically that's, we have, you know, additional meetings planned to share with them and making sure that that is, meets all of the Army Corps standards, at least for our levy, so that we are structurally that and geotechnically is sound, and that we don't, you know, it's designed to withstand, you know, wave impact and this, you know, all the other design considerations. So.
Yeah, boat that's got loose in the marina and, you know, whatever. But anyway, yeah, it's, okay, so that's in progress still, and this will tie in with that whole thing. But basically, it doesn't trigger anything right now because you're not in that designated zone. Whereas we did need to solve that in 4th point. Yeah, other than that, just my compliments to managing to pack all of that program in a very creative way into a very well used site, and look forward to seeing it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. So, Commissioner Wilson, I'm just going to amplify on your question a little bit here. That was a question I had, I forgot about, was as far as the Army Corps requirements for the berm. It sounds like that their standards are the gold standards. I guess they've been doing this for a long time. So the question I had is, you know, is the Army Corps requirements the best? And also just understanding, do you build it to Army Corps requirements because maybe there's federal funds that are involved? And Commissioner Wilson, you cleared up in a FEMA flood zone, then it's a requirement that you comply with those standards. So I think I'm getting the picture of how the Army Corps comes in here. Is that accurate? Is there anything to add to that?
No, sorry, go ahead, Regan.
No, I was just going to say that currently there is no funding from Army Corps, but we wanted to make sure that our piece fits into the greater puzzle that is being planned on either side, and making sure that those tie-ins, you know, if we weren't to build it and Army Corps were to build it, like that, our designs match that basically, so that there would be no failure point between this, right? That our design matches theirs. And Kevin, feel free to add on to that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that we aren't looking for any funding from the Army Corps or federal government. We do have a LWCF grant that we've been awarded for this, so we do have some federal dollars, but it's not tied directly to the berm. It's the, you know, shade structures and signage and water features.
Okay, and they're not here to answer, but I guess I'm assuming that those requirements, Army Corps requirements, are acceptable to the climate resiliency folks in the city, that they deem that's adequate protection or infrastructure.
So we're working within the city's liaison, Kate Rosa, to connect with the Army Corps, and so the city's entire initiative kind of rests on their shoulders. And so we're making sure to keep her abreast of this project, and then work with her and the Corps in meetings to make sure that our design is in alignment with the bigger, broader picture for coastal stormwater management.
Okay, and then we'll all cross our fingers for additional federal funding. Okay, Commissioner Smargiassi?
Nothing further. Beautiful park. Glad to see a piece of the berm getting built there.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Herbst?
Nothing, just actually one comment on the Army Corps. My recollection from previous work is that one reason to build to their specs is that if things get damaged in the future from a storm, you need to be able to show that you built to their standards. That's where money can really come in and be very important. So
yeah,
thanks.
Understood. Thank you for that. Okay, Elena, I don't see any hands raised. Did you get any emails?
No emails, no hands raised, and I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smargiassi?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Looking
Have a great
forward
night.
to it.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
are we.
Okay, next item on the agenda, notice of intent for unassigned DEP and unassigned Boston file number from Weston and Sampson Engineers, Inc. on behalf of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department for the proposed construction of resilient berm and flood wall, stormwater improvements, park amenities, including a new building, parking spaces, turf fields, lighting, tree plantings at Moakley Park, 1005 Columbia Road in South Boston. Resource areas, land subject to coastal storm flowage, 100-foot buffer to coastal dune. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, I'm Maren Braco. I'm a senior project manager at the Parks Department.
Regan Andriola, again, Weston Sampson, project manager.
Megan Kearns, Weston and Sampson, wetland scientist and permitting specialist. Weston, yeah, and Sampson.
Great.
I'm Brittany Ferber with Niche Engineering.
Okay, who's the last person? I'm sorry, didn't show up on the screen.
Brittany Ferber with
Brittany?
Niche Engineering.
There you are. Okay, thank you. Okay, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thank you for having us here. I think we'll advance one slide. And then, yeah, you can keep going here. We're really excited to be here. This is the culmination of almost a decade of work here in Moakley Park. I'm here again with my team from Weston and Sampson, Stoss and Niche Engineering. If you can go to the next slide. This is part of the larger citywide climate resilience planning that started over a decade ago. So this project was identified as a major flood pathway in South Boston, which was developed back in 2018. Go to the next slide. Through all of this planning work, the city was able to identify a number of priority projects based on a potential for a 2030 flood pathway. So Moakley here is represented by 3 dots. We'll be talking about 2 of them tonight, the Moakley Park proper and the Northern Connector, which is where we need to extend the berm off site in order to close the flood pathway. But the city really saw this as an opportunity to redesign the park, invest in very much needed upgrades to the fields and the play areas of the park, but also build in this layer of resiliency that will protect South Boston. Next slide. And so this is just to give you a sense of if Boston does nothing, 3 flood pathways will meet behind Moakley Park between Fort Point Channel, Morrissey Boulevard, and the floodwaters from Moakley, putting 2 of the largest and oldest BHA communities that sit right behind Moakley at the front lines of this, and then obviously flooding into many other neighborhoods throughout Boston. And so we come here tonight to sort of show you the materials that we've had based on, again, about 8 years of work that's involved a lot of stakeholder engagement with a lot of the folks on this call and extensive community engagement and technical analysis. And then I'll hand it over to our team.
Thanks, Maren. Okay, so, I should have taken a drink of water. All right, let's get ready. So this filing here that we're speaking with about tonight, it's sort of a 2-part. The second part will be after this hearing, but there's Moakley Park proper is what we're calling in North Connector. Excuse me. And the park itself will be developed in generally 2 phases, Phase A and Phase B. This filing before you now is for the Phase A limits. Next slide, please. Generally, this is showing the entire park combined, both Phase A and B, just so you have the full picture. We have the resilient berm that runs north to south, page left to right here, that parallels Day Boulevard. But really overall, it's incredible park improvements on the neighborhood side of the berm, including new fields, new sport courts, new plazas, new playground areas, all new landscaping, and then all the coastal features. But we'll get into more detail. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is Phase A. what you see here in the blue outline is the Phase A limits, which includes the entirety of the flood protection, the flood barrier, the resilient berm, as well as a portion, about a third of the overall park, the north end of the park, which we call the core park. So the red dashed line here is the the resilient berm alignment. What you see shaded in blue is the flood resilient feature, the combination of both the berm and what we call the coastal landscape, which is on the harbor side, running along Day Boulevard. And the combination there is what is funded through a BRIC grant. Next slide, please. This is a combination of renderings and a cross-section because we really want to emphasize how great this resilient berm is. Sometimes people hear it and they think it's this, you know, more of a traditional levee that just sticks out of the ground. But the way this was designed strategically to incorporate the berm into the landscape. So the first top left picture is a rendering looking north or from the north looking south, and you can see that entire coastal landscape on the left side between Day Boulevard and the top of the berm. And that's really unique to the city of, unique for Boston here in this neighborhood. You can see the existing park is just lawn and some shade trees, but this is creating habitat. It's creating a native plant area, something that will absorb future floodwaters and storm surge. So it's really an interesting feature that provides walking paths and landscaping that otherwise wouldn't be there. On the right, top right, you can see a view from atop the berm looking out. We call this the overlook, which has picnic areas, and then looking out over the coastal landscape. And on that elevated top of the berm, you can actually have better views than it currently exists out to Carson Beach and the water beyond. The cross section across the bottom, you can see starting from left to right. Again, the berm is really subtly incorporated into the landscape. It's really about an average of 5 to 6 feet high. So across the size of this landscape and this whole park, it's really subtle. It's not something that you're going to notice, but it gives you just enough elevation over the amenities on either side to have great views. And then you can see from the right side is sort of this rolling, undulating landscape, which creates a really great feature, but doesn't obstruct sight lines to and from Day Boulevard and to the beach. Next slide, please. One of the main purposes of this project, this area is a major flood pathway. So this is showing the existing flood hazard projections. So in a 1% storm, almost the entirety of the park is flooded. Next slide, please. So the main, one of the key features of this project is to address the major flood risks, which happen for 2 reasons. One, stormwater and very high groundwater out here. There's also a lack of drainage. And so during just typical rainfall events, the fields are flooded. It's very most of it has to be shut down, and they're fields that cannot be used. They are soggy, they are unsafe. And then obviously the protected sea level rise. So the combination of the resilient landscape berm and the stormwater management improvements are key features of improving this park. We also have, of course, the enhanced community and recreational amenities, environmental cleanup, and then the coastal protection strategies for the overall neighborhood. Next slide, please. Again, back to the resilient berm. It's about 2,500 linear feet from north to south. Again, average of about 6 feet high, 50 feet wide at the toe of slope. We have a 3-to-1 slope on the harbor side, on the neighborhood side, and a 4-to-1, a little bit gentler slope on the harbor side. And extends from Saunders Stadium at the south all the way up to Babe Ruth Park Drive at the north, and then crosses over into the North Connector, which we will be speaking about later. The design flood elevation is at 22. The berm itself is comprised of a sheet pile wall and earthen berm on either side of it. So obviously there's also a whole network of very critical infrastructure that runs in this area. Both MWRA infrastructure that runs north-south and BWSC infrastructure that runs east-west. So the berm itself, the core of it, where we are passing over and near these critical infrastructure components, we have done significant structural and geotechnical analysis and to prevent settlement, over excavating of the material and including lightweight fill on top of that, so that we are not putting any more load on top of these critical utilities. So this is just a cross section to show typically the sheet pile wall that runs deep into the site, down into the clay core, and then or the clay layer beneath the park. And then we have a mid area of lightweight fill, clean cap over that for ballast to hold the lightweight fill down. And then across the top is a pedestrian promenade, and then landscaping on either side. Next slide, please. So now with this, if you remember the couple slides before, you saw the whole park flooded with this berm installed in the sheet pile wall. This is how we protect the rest of the site. This shows the 2070 flood protection. This would be after the construction of phase A. If you flip to the next slide, you may have heard discussions about South Connector, and so that is a piece. We have a little tail end of at the south end of the park, where we have been coordinating with Dorchester Bay City, the future development to the southeast of the park. And should they build their flood protection, we have a plan to connect them so that there's further flood protection for that MWRA and state police barracks down there. But even if that is not built, our current proposal closes the flood path entirely, and ties into high ground on either side. But just wanted to show you that difference between the two. There's a little bit extra that is protected if we are able to make that connection with DBC. So next slide. As I mentioned, part of this project is proposed stormwater improvements. So the phase A includes 330,000 cubic feet of stormwater storage through green infrastructure and 2 large subsurface detention systems. On the neighborhood side, we're also utilizing porous pavement, rain gardens, filtration trenches, tree filters. On the harbor side of the berm, we're using stormwater wetlands, meadows, and then overflow conveyed to the MWRA tunnel. We have considered interim conditions and how to address that before phase B starts to get implemented. Brittany is on the call, and if there's more questions about that, we'll direct them to her. But next slide. Okay, a little bit more of a zoom in on the proposed park amenities. So again, atop the entire berm, we have a 20-foot wide accessible path. This is pedestrian, but we have it wide enough for maintenance vehicles or emergency vehicles if needed, but those would only be, but it's all primarily just for pedestrian access. We do have an O&M building. We have a placement for that. Again, the building, the design of that will be done by PFD, but we have cited this building here so that there is, given the size of this site in the park, we wanted to make sure that there was a maintenance facility on site to show that we are investing in this park and that there will be care taken to maintain this park. We do have a small parking lot with 33 new parking spaces, And there is also a slight redesign road diet to Babe Ruth Park Drive, which will provide another 12 on-street parking spaces. Parking is critical around here if you ask any of the neighbors. We have 3 ball fields. We have the premier synthetic turf field. That is the large one that has a multi-use field in the outfield. And then we have 2 smaller ball fields that are hybrid with a synthetic infield and natural turf outfield. We have a community plaza with seating areas, trees, and a small splash pad. We have the coastal landscape area, which has picnic areas and boardwalks. And then overall, there's pedestrian lighting, sports field lighting, and then around the perimeter is a community path and a running track. And in general, we are proposing basically 3 times the amount of tree canopy than what exists today. Next slide, please. And part of the project will be proposed environmental cleanup. The entirety of the park will be capped with a clean cap. There are some targeted areas that need specialized soil removal, but generally across the site, we will be capping that in accordance with the MCP, and we'll be able to close out any of the remaining RTNs on the site. Next slide, please. I think I'm gonna pitch this over to Megan.
Yep, take it from here. Thanks, Regan. So there are a few wetland resource areas adjacent to the project site. Just wanted to point them out on this figure, including Coastal Beach and Coastal Dune, both associated with Carson Beach, which is to the east of the park. No work is proposed to either of these 2 resource areas, but work is proposed within the 100-foot buffer zone to Coastal Dune. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, most of the park does fall within the 100-year floodplain, identified as land subject to coastal storm flowage. The elevations on site range from 10 to 11 feet, NAVD 88. And just want to note that no work is proposed in the VE zone for floodplain either. Next slide, please. I also wanted to briefly touch on a few adjacent sensitive environmental resources on the site, including NHESP habitat, which is mapped on Carson Beach, as well as shellfish suitability on the beach and harbor. These areas do not extend within the park, but are located adjacent to the park. So we are keeping that in mind for this park design. In addition, a small portion of the park is located within filled tidelands, sort of in the upper northeast corner of the park, while the majority of the park is located within landlocked tidelands, which is subject to jurisdiction under Chapter 91. Just wanted to note that we are in the process. We have submitted minor modifications to Chapter 91, but want to note that. Next slide, please. So as you saw from the FEMA map, most of the project impacts are from land subject to coastal storm flowage, which you can see here is shaded in blue on site, which is about 21.5 acres of impact. In addition, a little over 1 acre of impact is proposed within the 100-foot buffer zone to Coastal Dune, which is sort of the light dashed orange line. We've got a arrow pointing to that on this map. It really just clips a portion of the project site, but most of the work, as I mentioned, is in land subject to coastal storm flowage. I guess I will turn it over to the commission if they have any questions. I know we ran through that very quickly and there's a lot of information, so happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, so first fundamental question here is, it appears by looking at the NOI application that DCR is the property owner here?
No, the park is owned by the Parks Department. The sidewalk along the edge is owned by DCR and the roadway.
Okay.
For the Northern Connector, they do own the entirety of the Northern Connector.
Okay, so that's why Ms. Geiges signed the NOI. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because it only lists Parks Department as the applicant and the owner as DCR. Okay. Good to know. Okay, so a couple quick questions. Maybe I'll start with the environmental cleanup. You have some RTNs that are going to be closed out. Obviously, LSP supervised work here?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And what we generally ask for in situations like this is a special condition to the order of conditions that should the project have to halt because, let's say, of discovery of an imminent hazard, that conservation staff is made aware of that. So that we can assess what's going on, number one. Number two is when you close out, if you can notify staff and provide the DEP links that the site has been closed out. I expect you're going to need an AUL here, or maybe a few AULs. Is that the plan?
Yes, there is already one on the site.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the capping, do we have some sort of membrane underneath the soil?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And we
Okay.
have a varying height depending on what the surface condition is. It varies from 12 to 24 inches of clean cap.
Okay. So besides the AUL, how do maintenance operations, or let's say contractors, know where not to dig, that they if they dig too far, they will compromise the integrity of the remediation? What's in
You
place
mean
there?
after it's installed, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I think that's something that we can provide a condition on that.
Okay, it should go into the, well, it wouldn't even go into the contracting. So it's something that, lives, it's a perpetual maintenance condition that would live beyond the project. So we want to make sure that, the people don't dig too far, right? And damage.
Sure. I know that there will be an extensive environmental soils management plan put together for the construction documentation. So
yeah,
that
that's
will
a
be
little
covered.
bit different. What I'm looking for is ongoing maintenance. So it's some sort of, let me give you an analogy. We run up against this with condominium associations, like buildings, new development that will turn into condominiums, right? We generally ask or have the order of conditions referenced or included in the master deed, so future owners will know that they're in an area that needs protection. So it's very similar to that. So I think what we'd want to see is in your AUL that there is a line in the AUL that contractors and operations staff will be made aware of the cap and what activities are allowed when excavating. So we'll put that in as special conditions. Let me think about it while the other commissioners talk to you. Couple other quick questions. We've run into this issue before over there, the shorebirds there. How are they going to be protected? What sort of impact might this have? And I think it's the plovers. It's my recollection.
Yeah, I can chime in, and Regan, you can add to it. But yep, there are piping plovers over there. We are going through the NEPA process with an N as well, which we will be doing Section 7 consultations. So during that, they will let us know what conditions we need to follow, which may be, shorebird monitors, whatever it might be, but we will be following all of those conditions.
Okay, so I think that we would want staff to receive a copy of the Section 7 requirements so that we know what they are when they go out and monitor the site. Okay, increased stormwater on the seaward side of the berm. What sort of impacts will that have?
What exactly do you mean by increased stormwater on the seaway?
Yeah, I mean, is as far as, let's say, the integrity of the berm, velocitation of floodwaters. I think that question was asked during the MEPA process as well.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
see
my
the answer to
understanding is that the berm is being designed to withstand all floodwaters and stormwater that may fall on the site.
Okay, because the question is there'll be an increase of stormwater on the seaward side of the berm. So I'm assuming you've engineered for that. There's been a feasibility study done that it won't collapse the berm, or and I know you're tying in, I guess it's north and somewhere else. I guess
Yeah, so
I'm really concerned about velocitation onto other properties, but the question was about the loading, really.
Yeah, so the berm's designed, and Regan, feel free to chime in, but the berm's designed to withstand the flooding of the ocean waters. So the stormwater compared to what we would see during a storm from that is not as much. So I think that the concerns from flooding in the berm are designed for.
Okay.
And just to clarify, most of the landscape in front of the berm is, a series of vegetated, coastal landscapes that can absorb water with low areas that can be designed to expand over time as we see increased storm events.
There you go. That's the answer. Thank you. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Mary.
that. Yeah, and sorry, the EIR certificate was just issued on Friday, so just catching up to it. Okay. So with that, Elena, what do you have on this?
Thank you. Yes, as was noted earlier, we don't have a DEP file number for the project yet, but we did conduct a site visit, and those photos are in the drive folder for the commission's review. Other than that, we didn't really have any flags.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, on the existing utilities that go underneath this, are you performing television inspection to make sure everything's all set before you start working?
Yeah, I think the plan is that would be a pre-construction. Once we get closer to construction, we'd be evaluating that.
But it is your intent that the project will televise inspect, so everyone knows what shape all of the conduits are.
Yes, if that's required from the commission.
Yeah, I think our understanding is that BWC requires that for all the sewer and drain lines, and we'll be complying with that.
Yeah, the earlier you do it, should it be a problem that is the responsibility of the commission early on, the last thing you need is two sets of contractors playing around in the same mud pile. So if they're all in great shape, are you going to do preventive work, put a lining in them so that when you put the overburden, despite how well we all try to figure out lightweight fill and heavyweight fill, any cracks that develop are going to require change orders and problems. But if we seal it ahead of time, we'll be in better shape. I'm just throwing that out there. That's not to throw it as a requirement on this permit, but we'll get you somewhere.
On this permit.
So when the ocean comes in, the roadway is flooded all the way up to the berm. How are you going to absolutely coordinate that the DCR drainage system, which ties into that tunnel, has been adequately sealed so we don't have the ocean flowing into the MWRA tunnel? Is that a burden you're putting on the MWRA to make sure that's shut down? Is that a DCR problem? Or who owns that?
This project is not planning to make any changes to the DCR infrastructure that connects into the MWRA tunnel.
Right. I got it. But if we don't make plans and planning how this whole thing works, somebody's got to make sure that if the ocean gets into a DCR catch basin from the surface, it wants to get into the MWRA tunnel. I think you are all the MWRA infrastructure is seaward of your barrier. I think to make these controls.
MWRA tunnel is
seaward. Yeah.
Regan, has that come up in conversations with DCR at all, or with MWRA?
It's going to be a long-term issue, and Mr. Sullivan's correct. Sooner or later, the city, whatever storm improvements we're making in the park and all along the city are going to have to deal with drainage on either side of the berms. but I don't know that it's specific to this project, but I guess it's one that's well raised.
Well, I think it is specific to the project. We got to make sure that we're planning the projects. There's an owner of the project. It's got to be coordinated with everybody. You will be retired, Steve.
You
I
won't.
I might be, but I'm just raising this again. I continue to raise it at public spots. We got to figure this thing out, and you know, you guys are the proponents, so I will look for you to do it. The cap of 2 feet, if you have 2 feet of soil, did you look at that? What that might do to the clay layer underneath and to the existing conduits that are underneath by putting even just 2 feet of soil? Or did the geotech say that's okay?
No, I mean, we have evaluated that they've done that analysis. So any load we are offsetting with lightweight fill. So I think there's a small amount that, I mean, maybe it's a foot, but even that, we're trying to not put any load over these without offset, raising grades without accommodating for it with lightweight fill.
Yep. There are existing utilities running parallel to this too. They're down about 5 feet deep, water line, et cetera. And there may be private utilities, I'm not certain. Do you intend to raise them up so that the utilities can get at those things? Or are you just gonna put more fill in the form of a berm that's 50 foot wide, 6 foot high, directly over those? Is there any talk about raising utilities up so they come close to the surface?
Yes, I believe anything that would be from a water line perspective, wherever we are crossing that, we would be, I believe, raising that because we understand we don't want that deeper than 5 feet or so.
Yep. And I know you did a good study on storing water and you mentioned the amount and all that. Is there any other infrastructure being built on the old Colony Avenue side that when the storm is big enough and it's raining like hell, you fill up your storage, the tunnel is already shut off because of the issue I just brought up a minute ago. So you can't put any more stormwater in the tunnel. Do you have to build an ancillary storm drainage system heading down towards Morrissey Boulevard? Has that been determined?
So the amount of we really tried to maximize the amount of storage that we provided for stormwater on the inland side of the berm. And so our initial target was to try to provide storage for the 100-year storm. And while we're not meeting that target, I think we're going well above and beyond in the amount of storage that we're providing. And I think ultimately, yes, in phase B, the approach would be to provide a connection to the Morrissey outfall. That is just not proposed as part of this phase A work. So ultimately, that would be the goal.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, within phase A, we're not meeting the 100-year storm, but within phase B, we would be. Correct.
Right. But there'd still be an emergency overflow connection anyway.
I think that the plan for phase B is that the primary connection is to the Morrissey outfall, not just like an emergency connection.
Okay. Yeah.
That needs to continue to be coordinated with you.
Yep. No problem. I just asking.
Yep.
I hear about this. This is one of those projects you can raise a family on. It lasts so long. So it's just things that come up all the time. And is the alignment finally settled? Are we settled on this alignment?
I would like to think so. I think we feel pretty confident about where we are.
Okay.
And the work that's been done to date.
Because we'll need an amendment to this order when we finally get to it if it changes, that's all. I wasn't sure how confident we all are. But then again, if DEP doesn't give you a number, we'll wait a while anyway, so.
We have a brick grant deadline at the end of September, so we are moving forward with all our permitting and documentation, cost estimates, benefit cost analysis over the next month.
Yep. All right, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wilson.
Appreciate all of Commissioner Sullivan's questions. Covered off a couple of mine as well. Yeah, it's fun to finally see this project in front of us. BPS, I don't know if you guys know, has a book on it that they distribute to, I think, the 2nd or 3rd graders that is like about flying a kite, but then there's a whole bunch more about soil remediation and flood burn protection. So that's good to see it in reality. I guess one question I had was in terms of like the soils on site are fairly clay based and are largely impermeable, and there's high groundwater and the drainage isn't working particularly well. How is sort of these detention basins and infiltration? Is it like, are these going to be in targeted areas where we see better results in terms of being able to perk, or sort of what's sort of the strategy there?
Yeah, so I think our like large scale detention basins are just that, detention. We're going to have lined systems because of exactly what you're saying, the high groundwater condition and contaminated soils. So those will be lined systems, and then where feasible, where we have a little bit more depth to groundwater, we'll have green infrastructure that will be unlined to allow for infiltration. So while the larger scale systems will be just detention, wherever feasible, the green infrastructure will allow for infiltration and recharge.
Okay. And then in terms of just like sort of, I think a little bit of what Commissioner Sullivan was alluding to is system in place today that works, but in the future we're going to have maybe more disruptions or less ability to drain out of the system and that sort of thing. Is it like, given the berm condition, we've seen in a couple places along 93 there where there's additional pumping that's needed. Some of that probably is just on a temporary basis, but in terms of like this project, which will be there for the foreseeable future, is there provisioning for sort of areas where there would be permanent pumping or those sorts of considerations?
We are not planning for pumping of stormwater. We're planning that can drain by gravity. We are looking at those future like 2070 projected storm events. So again, not as much in phase A because we are really maximizing the amount of stormwater that we can fit on the site, given all the programmatic and soil constraints. So in future phases, we're looking at as time goes on and as we start to see those larger storm events kind of holding space to expand stormwater in the future. So not necessarily designing systems for them right now, but designing so that they can be expanded in the future. So that's kind of our approach to storm events getting worse and more significant rainfall. So we're trying to provide as much storage as we can on site for now and looking at where we have the potential to expand later on.
Okay. Yeah, no, adaptive strategy makes tons of sense here. In terms of the lightweight fill, is that like foam or is that like structural? Like, and if foam, how is that anchored given that it might be inundated and such?
Yeah, it's a foamed aggregate. I forget the exact term, but it's basically wrapped. There's geotextile that wraps it so that it can't go out, and then we have foam glass aggregate is what it's called, wrapped in geotextile, and then there's a basically ballast clean fill to put on to weigh it down so that it doesn't move. Is essentially how it works.
Okay, great. And then last question, just in terms of fantastic that you're adding more trees and shade out there. Lots of good stuff obviously associated with this project. I was just wondering in terms of those trees, like if they're going to go into the clean layer, but they might have a tendency to migrate into the former sort of more contaminated layers and that type of thing. In terms of the barriers that you're setting up, what sort of provisions do you have in place to sort of minimize that migration if necessary?
Yeah, I actually, that's a good question. I think in the landscape areas is where the deepest clean fill is. So that's at least a 24-inch layer. But I understand what you're saying is that the roots could expand there, that there is going to be the orange Merapi layer, the demarcation layer. So I'm not sure how much that will prevent root growth into it. Again, I think the soils out there right now are okay to support tree growth. but that's something that we can clarify with our environmental team, our LSP, to see if there's anything further that we need to be doing, like deeper clean fill around the trees. I think that's a fair question that I don't have the exact answer for.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I think sort of where my head might be going a little bit is that we want the trees to thrive out there. It's a pretty tough environment as is, between wind and probably, so making sure that they get established, and then sort of to Commissioner Sullivan's point, the more trucks and digging and everything like that, if we need to replace these trees after 2 years ad infinitum, that, makes everybody's jobs more difficult. Yeah, I guess that would probably be the only thing, if we were to continue or to get more details on, would be sort of the tree aspect, just to make sure that those things thrive as long and as well as they can.
Yeah, Commissioner Wilson, that was part of my line of questioning as well, regarding the AUL and the membrane. I guess it's the orange Merafi layer. And my concern was the roots of the trees would damage the layer, right? And could cause like an exposure pathway for humans. So I think that would be mostly dealt with in the AUL. So I guess, Reagan, the question I have for you is, does the LSP have a draft AUL prepared at this point? Probably not. I think you're pretty early into this, but I mean, it's definitely a question to ask. And if there is a draft AUL proposed at this point, as far as the permanent solution, I think we'd like to see that.
Yeah, we'll get information on that for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Wilson, I'm sorry. Did you have any other questions?
All good. Thank you. Appreciate you guys sharing the project with us.
Thank you. Commissioner Smargiassi?
No further comment at this point. Mr. Sullivan ticked off all of mine and a couple that I was afraid to ask. So.
Oh, good. And a couple of jokes.
As usual.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Herbst?
I just have a question that maybe that I just didn't fully understand it, but you talked about the southern connection, and it sounded like you were proposing or saying that it wasn't clear that it might be one of two places. I don't know if I misunderstood that, but
No, actually, I wonder, can we go back a couple slides? I can tell you that might be helpful. I'll go the other direction. It would be slide, well, 13 and 14 of ours. So keep going back a couple more.
So there's one location. It's
Okay,
unclear right now when it gets constructed and who constructs it. It's on DCR land. There's been a lot of conversation and coordination with Dorchester Bay City, but that development's been on hold. And so that is a natural high ground. And so it is safe for quite a while, and we have more time to sort that out.
I just wanted to make sure that I knew that we're permitting one place. That
if you go back to two more slides, I think, and it'll show you one more. So one more. Okay, so this is where you can see sort of the pinch point on the south end. Sort of you see a little rectangle just north of the state or east of the stadium. There's a little pinch point where we're landing, and that red line, that is elevation 22. So we'd be tying in there. And then if we flip to the next slide real quick, you can see, so yeah, actually this little Y here. So we're already tying into high ground at 22. However, if DBC builds their flood resilient structure, we would also continue to tie it in across Day Boulevard. So there would be sort of where that little Y is.
Because you've tried to give us the whole big picture, I've been confused about what you're actually trying to permit today. So
we are permitting the slide before this.
Okay, could we go back to that?
Yep.
So to the full extent of this red dotted line.
Yep.
Okay.
So this, yes, basically at that pinch point there is where That's where the sheet pile wall ends. And then the 22 contour, the existing high ground, picks up. So we end our sheet pile wall, but this red line basically indicates elevation 22. So it's showing for the flood closure, flood pathway closure. And then the idea is that if we were to continue, we could add a little extra piece of sheet pile or berm a little further down, which provides further protection for state police and barracks. But again, that's not what we're permitting right now. We're just, if anyone had heard about Southern Connector, we just wanted to indicate what that meant. It would just be an additional piece of protection further down. And if and when that happens, we would come back to talk to you about it. But
okay, so I know we're talking about two different things also, but the full red line is the extent of the basic flood protection that you want to do.
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
so disregard the other slide. This is
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Eleanor, I don't see any hands up. Did you get any emails?
Nope, no hands, not seeing any emails either.
Okay, so we're going to have to continue this anyway. So I think in the interim, when we see you next time, if you can get a hold of the proposed draft AUL for the MCP's permanent solution, and I think to Commissioner Wilson's concern, if we could get like an overlay of the tree plantings vis-a-vis the membrane, which would be capping the contaminated soils that are going to remain in place at the site. If you can do something like that, I think that would be helpful. Is there anything else other commissioners are looking for here? That's what I have in my notes. Sounds like no. Okay. Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to continue the hearing.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Estes-Margiazzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, thank you. Stick around. Next item on the agenda is notice of intent for DEP file number unassigned and Boston file number unassigned from Weston and Sampson Engineers, Inc. on behalf of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department for the construction of a landscape berm tied into the raised road at Babe Ruth Drive and sheet pile wall in the North Connector at Moakley Park, 1305 Columbia Road in South Boston. Resource areas are land subject to coastal storm flowage and 100-foot buffer to coastal dune. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
I'm here, Maren Braco, project manager at the Parks Department.
Same team?
New member, Jesse Johnson with Weston and Sampson, project manager for the Connectors project and civil engineering lead.
Great. Okay. Who would like the floor?
I can give another quick introduction if you go to the next slide. Again, same team. We do have a couple of other members. This involves a little bit of roadway grading. So we have Howard Stein Hudson. So this, again, is a very similar slide deck, but we'll just be focusing on this triangle here, the Northern Connector. I'll just note that it is owned by DCR. NWRA has a headworks facility that is undergoing renovations. We've been working closely with them. There's also a bark park that is managed by a nonprofit. And so we've been working with them as well. And just the reason the city is taking this piece on and to extend our barrier from the park into land that is outside of our jurisdiction is that if we could spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the park and we would not be closing the flood pathway and all of the floodwaters could go around the park and into the neighborhood and flood all of the same residential homes and streets that you saw on those original flood pathways. So this is a smaller project, but a really important piece. And it is on the lower side of the project site in general. So we'd see floodwaters here sooner than on the southern side. And with that, I will hand it over to Jesse.
Thank you, Maren. Next slide, please. So to give everybody a reference point again, just heard a lot about Moakley Park, and we're here before you tonight to talk about the North Connector portion shaded here in blue. And as Maren mentioned, this project is intended to be a bookend, if you will, for the flood barrier being constructed for the Moakley Park redevelopment, where we would continue that across Babe Ruth Park Drive in front of the MWRA headworks, and then connect into the vicinity of G Street. You see in the lower right-hand side of that slide right there. Next slide, please. And you've seen this before, but again, just to reiterate, showing where we are on the left-hand side there, we'll be part of the Phase A project of Moakley Park. The construction documents will be compiled between our project and the Moakley Park project. It'll become one project altogether when it goes out to bid and for construction. But we're independently designing for our site constraints, stakeholders involved with our property limit areas, utilities that we have to consider, and continue again the same approach that was started with Moakley Park and just continuing it to the north. Next slide, please. Again, just a reference point of the flooding that happens in the area currently. Giving an idea, we don't in our area have significant flooding that would happen. But as Maren mentioned, we do need to seal it off for the future projections in 2070 to tie into an existing 22 grade that's a little bit farther north. Next slide, please. And here's to give you an aerial view. It was mentioned, so the Columbus Headworks, MWRA's really critical infrastructure, is a big piece of what we're trying to protect here with our design. We went through a number of iterations of alignments, trying to understand what infrastructure was critical, how we could thread our proposed berm alignment through this area to connect over to, and in this image, the intersection of Columbia Road and William J. Day Boulevard over on the right-hand side. And there's just G Street to the north of that. So we had to carefully consider how we could get through there to try to minimize disturbance to some of the significant vegetation, how we could get over some of the infrastructure, and how to minimize disturbance to facilities, but then also consider the future redevelopment of the headworks that's going to be expanding their footprint slightly from where it is now. Next slide, please. And this was the alignment shown here in black with the solid and the dashed lines that we landed on that seemed to fit the best and minimize these disturbances. We will be picking up for that 22 grade that's being proposed on Moakley Park. And in order to achieve that and maintain that elevation going from left to right, we have to raise the grade of the existing roadway for Babe Ruth Drive, which at its maximum raising is about 5 feet at that point where we cross. And then we go in front of the facility. This image right here shows the conceptual proposed expansion of the MWRA facility. So designing for that to make sure that we can work around them and they can work around us, and there's nothing that would have to be redone, if you will, as a result of either project in the future. We are keeping the grade up as high as we can with natural earth and berm, but it does transition to where it goes to solid black there. That's representing where we have a sheet pile core wall and a concrete cap that starts to become exposed as we move closer to William J. Day Boulevard. And the reason being, we were trying to consider the impacts as we got close to the resource area and minimizing disturbance of the boulevard. So we actually brought the grades back down and went to more of a shear wall, if you will, that gets to a maximum height of 5 feet right at that closest pinch point adjacent to the boulevard. That's the highest point of the wall. It becomes, and I'll show you an image a little bit later of what that looks like from a cross-section view. But by doing that, again, we are able to minimize our disturbance and still catch back up to grade as we approach the boulevard. And then we take a turn with our barrier and go between the facility and the park there. And by doing this, we're able to preserve a significant amount of existing mature vegetation that's on the seaward side of the park. And that was a big consideration. A lot of feedback that we got through our public engagement was to try to protect those trees as much as we could. And coming through there, we then have to cross another travelway with Columbia Road. In this area, though, the increase is only about 2 feet max from the existing grades, because the grades do start to go up as you go inward a little bit more. And then we have a pretty good size existing vegetated median between the Columbia roads that we wanted to take advantage of, where the grades only have to come up about 1 to 1.5 feet as we meander through that and try to avoid, again, utilities. There's electrical infrastructure in there, but then also some mature vegetation, and then ultimately tie into G Street in that vicinity over to the right. And next slide, please. And this is a little bit more detailed, give you an idea of the grading. If you can follow some of the line work, this again shows that we are coming up about 5 feet as we cross Babe Ruth Drive, and adding a pathway that would extend from the pathway being proposed within the park that would have a safer crossing here, and then extending that pathway through adjacent to the flood protection and connecting to the existing sidewalk that falls adjacent to the boulevard. You might not be able to tell from this, but I really want to point out some of the advantages that we are taking with this design is we have careful coordination with DCR and saw an opportunity to actually do a road diet through Babe Ruth Drive in this area. There's 2 existing travel lanes in each direction currently in that area that we saw were not being fully utilized with existing traffic counts. And DCR asked us if we could reduce it down to 1 travel lane in each direction and create some parking actually that's going to be very needed in this area after expansion of the park. So we did accomplish that with this design in converting also a lot of the travel lane that's generating dirty runoff to hardscape and sidewalk along the right of way of the Moakley Park itself, and then within the DCR's land. And as you travel again from left to right, we just maintain grades throughout, trying to tie into existing, maintaining ADA accessible grades, continuing with pathways as they currently are now to make sure it's convenient for everybody that uses the area, and then crossing over Columbia Drive to the north there and making sure, again, we have good, safe crosswalks and connections into current pathways that serve the dog park and the surrounding neighborhood. Again, I want to reiterate, we've been working closely with DCR to go over their infrastructure, drainage, their access pathways, making sure we understand any restrictions that they have in this area, not only during construction, but long-term. And same thing with MWRA and their design group. They are the 2 biggest stakeholders in this region that we have had significant communication with and coordination with on these designs throughout the process. Next slide, please. And this gives you an idea of the cross sections and what we're trying to accomplish here. So we'll point first to the image on the upper left, or cross section 2. And this gives you an idea of what I was mentioning, that we're building up the berm and being adjacent to the core wall that's adjacent to the MWRA's expanded facility. We're able to have that fill in the core wall roughly around the same height. So you really won't be able to notice the core wall in this region. There is a core of also lightweight fill that we have to provide in the same area, because there could be long-term settlement that we don't have utilities underneath this section, but we don't want the sidewalk settling over a long course of time. So we have designed that with our geotech engineers. And then if you look at the cross section 1, which is on the right-hand side here, this is where I'm mentioning that we have now the core wall and a concrete cap exposed to a maximum height of about 5 feet. This is within Chapter 91 jurisdiction. This is what we've submitted for minor modification to have this wall exposed like this, and also maintain the on the right-hand side there, we see the pedestrian in the image. That's the existing sidewalk and grade as it is now, and tying into both existing grades on the water side, but also the MWRA side on the left. Next slide, please. And this is just to reiterate what we're trying to accomplish with the connection from the Moakley Park berm in front of the MWRA facility, protecting that critical infrastructure, cutting through between the Bark Park and then connecting up to the north there at G Street, as mentioned before, all through continuous elevation of 22, tying into those existing grades on either end. So you have that continuous protection throughout this area. Next slide, please. And again, just showing that for the future projections at 2070 with an estimated 21 elevation of 21 and 1 foot of freeboard above that for that protection. Next slide, please. And some additional design considerations that we were going through here, just to make sure that we were not increasing stormwater flow to other areas that weren't currently getting it. We were trying to be sensitive to existing drainage patterns. We made sure we looked at the land side of the berms and where water is being directed to not have any ponding areas. And then on the water side, we were sensitive to the fact if we had any infrastructure that would cross the proposed alignment and drainage in particular. We've worked closely with the MWRA. For instance, they have existing now 3 drain lines that cross from their facility on the dry side, if you will, towards the wet side of our proposed berm. And we've coordinated with them to abandon 2 of those and just have 1 consolidated outfall from their facility that would pass through our sheet pile to the water side. And what we've done for that is just installed or proposed to install a check valve to make sure there isn't backflow in the event that water gets into a catch basin on the wet side and doesn't bypass the berm and bubble up out of the MWRA side. We were fortunate that we didn't have a lot of utilities outside of that we had to worry about overburden. However, we did propose and design lightweight fill within Babe Ruth Drive for some electrical infrastructure that runs through there. And then also same thing with Columbia Road. There's a water line that crosses that feeds a service into the dog park that we are proposing to have lightweight fill to make sure we don't have future settlement of that as well. And as I had mentioned previously, maintaining ADA accessibility throughout with our designs, with new walkways and existing, and making sure public access is maintained through not only the park improvements, but also the dog park. Next slide. I believe that goes back to Megan.
Thanks, Jesse. So you guys have seen these figures, but I'll just run through them briefly again to orient you. So there is coastal dune and coastal beach adjacent to the project site. It is a bit closer up near the North Connector, the coastal dune. There's no work proposed in coastal beach or coastal dune. Work is proposed within the 100-foot buffer zone to coastal dune, all associated with Carson Beach. Next slide, please. So again, similarly, there is some floodplain that extends into the North Connector portion of the site. Elevations on this site also range again from 10 to 11 feet NAVD 88, and no work is proposed within that VE zone. It is much less floodplain on the site, but it does extend into the North Connector. Next slide, please. And again, there are some adjacent sensitive resources that we spoke about for the Moakley Park presentation, which includes some mapped habitat and shellfish suitability associated with Carson Beach and in the harbor. And there is more filled tidelands shown on the North Connector and a little bit of landlocked tidelands as well. And as I mentioned, we've submitted minor modifications for both the North Connector and Moakley Park, and that is underway. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, there is work proposed within land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is shown by the blue shading, which totals about 0.38 acres of impact. In addition, there is about 0.85 acres of impact to the 100-foot buffer zone to coastal dune, which again is that light dashed orange line that has an arrow pointing to it, sort of cuts through up by the dog park and then tapers off into William J. Day Boulevard. And I guess I will turn it over to the commission if you have any questions or comments.
Great, thank you. Okay, so before I forget, Elena, can you make sure that on both of these NOIs that we get a signature page from the Parks Commissioner as owner as well? Because right now, as I'm looking through these, both of the NOIs, it basically indicates that the owner of the entire project is DCR. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
think
Boston Parks is
the-
just a applicant.
I think part of the I was looking back at this after you flagged that during the first Moakley project. I think that because it's listed as property owner required if different from applicant, maybe what we could do is under normal circumstances, if this were a project that were only proposed on Parks owned land, having the commissioner sign as just the applicant would be sufficient. But I think if we get a revised version of just the first page of the WPA form and the Boston NOI form that says check if more than one owner, and then clarify somewhere on there that the two owners are both the Parks Department as well as DCR, that would cover our bases. I definitely see what you mean on that. It does appear that it would just be DCR owned.
Yeah,
But I think
because-
that might be the source of the confusion.
Yeah, because our order of conditions requires the owner to comply with the order of conditions. And right now we have one owner.
I could clarify, there is only one owner for the Connectors project. That is DCR.
Okay.
All the project limit is within DCR jurisdiction.
So we'll make sure that that's clarified for the Resilient Moakley project.
Okay. So then that brings up, we'll talk about the procedure later. It's getting late as to how we're going to bind Parks and Recreation to the second NOI here. So it'll probably be, we'll have to adjust the order of conditions to say owner and applicant if it doesn't already. But anyways, I didn't really have any additional questions on this one. So Elena, I'll go to you, see if you had anything.
Thank you. No, we did not have anything either. Same notes as usual. No DEP file number, and we conducted a site visit. There are some photos in the drive folder.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Sullivan?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, none here either. Just impressive in the last hearing that there were no questions from the public, and you guys had a very thorough presentation, so appreciate that.
Yeah, and they've got to get this done because you have a couple of young commissioners that need to use these parks.
Soccer season in the spring and the fall, we're over there all the time. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, Commissioner Estes Margiazzi?
No questions. Appreciate the fact that the project team has been so thorough in coordination there. So we're happy to be on the dry side of their work. On the north, we are looking forward to Bay City development finishing up so we can be on the dry side down at the other end of the park.
Fantastic. Okay, Commissioner Herbst?
Sorry, no questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, Elena, I don't see any hands raised. Did you get any emails?
No hands raised, no emails, and I did want to clarify just that our sort of standard special conditions, which feels like it cancels each other out, but the first condition that we have is that the term applicant as used in this order of conditions refers to the applicant, owner, any successor in interest or successor in control of the property or assigns referenced in the notice of intent. So we could either keep that first condition as is to ensure that it covers both DCR and parks, or we could modify that language between now and September 2nd.
Okay. We'll take a look at it. Yeah, it sounds like it might cover it, but we just want to be sure. Okay,
Absolutely. Thank you.
great. Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to continue the hearing.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Estes Margiazzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that carries 5-0. Okay, thank you. Work on getting
you.
that DEP number so that file number so that we can move this along.
We will. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a request for a determination of applicability from Woods Hole Group on behalf of the Stone Living Lab for the proposed installation of living seawall panels at Langone Park, 471 Commercial Street, North End. Resource areas, coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Who's here on behalf of the proponent?
Leslie Fields with the Woods Hole Group. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Let's see. So you can go on to the next slide, please. Yep, so we are here with this request for determination of applicability, as was indicated for the installation of living seawall tiles at 471 Commercial Street and Langone Park. Next slide, please. Just for sort of reference, Langone Park is shown here in this aerial photograph, right along Commercial Street. And if you go to the next slide, that will zoom into the actual pier where we're proposing to put the tiles. So the pier is that sort of elongated structure that sticks out to the left of the, I guess that's a basketball court. And so you can see there is Coastal Beach on the north and east facing sides of the pier. And then see where that is land subject coast or land under the ocean. Next slide, please. So as far as existing conditions go, we've got that same aerial photograph in the lower left corner that I showed just a second ago that shows Coastal Beach, land under the ocean. We also have engineered stone seawall, and behind that is a coastal bank. So the top of the coastal bank is at the top of the seawall. There is Coastal Beach on the east facing and north facing sides of the seawall. And that's shown in that picture in the center. And then on the western facing side of the seawall is land under the ocean. Next slide, please. So we are proposing to do 2 installations at this site. Location 1 is on the west facing side, and location 2 is on the north facing side of the pier. The tile arrays will be centered between mean high water and mean low water, so in the intertidal zone, so that the panels will be submerged during high tide and then exposed during low tide. We are proposing to install 6 different types of panels to simulate different intertidal habitats. The arrays will measure 10 feet tall on both sides and between 12 and 22 feet wide. So that's the dimensions of each of the arrays, one on the west facing side and one on the north facing side. We are proposing to install those panels during the spring. It'll take about 4 to 6 weeks for installation. And we are saying there's no negative impacts to the structural stability of the existing seawall. The panels are not going to be permanent features that will be removed when the resource or the study is complete. Next slide, please. This is just a conceptual plan of the installation. So the graphic on the left is location 1 on the west facing side. And then on the right is location 2 on the north facing side of the pier. You can see the one on the west is bigger. That's the one that's 22 feet wide. And the one on the north is the one that's 12 feet wide, both 10 feet tall. The installation, as well as the ongoing monitoring, will be conducted during periods of low tide. Access for both installation and monitoring will either be on foot on the coastal bank or by boat if it's too deep to wade on the west facing side. I guess one thing I didn't say about the projects that we're also proposing to install a couple of signs. So they will be fixed to the railway that goes along the edge of the harbor walk. There'll be 2 signs, one in English, one in Spanish, and they are proposed to be 18 by 24 inches in size. So no disturbance to the harbor walk, just be attached to that railing there. Next slide, please. And then there's a monitoring program that goes along with these. So the Burns Lab will be responsible for conducting the monitoring. They'll be looking at regular biological and physical monitoring, doing visual surveys as well as quadrat counts. They will do a survey before installation and then at regular intervals following installation, looking for, signs of increased biological activity. They will prepare annual reports with the data and the assessment, and that will be provided to the general public and the scientific community via the Stone Living Lab website. And next slide, please. And so we are requesting a -2 determination for the project, as the project meets all the performance standards for work on the coastal bank, and local performance standards for work in land subject to coastal storm flowage. So I'm open to any questions.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Leslie. Okay. I think, Elena, what we'd be looking for here is a -2 determination with our standard erosion control provisions. Is that
Correct.
necessary?
I would also perhaps recommend including some of the conditions that we would usually apply to waterside work.
Yeah, thank you. That's my follow-up question. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay. And also, Leslie, I think in the past, the last time that we permitted, well, actually, we issued a negative determination of applicability. Maybe it was over in the Seaport. We did ask for the results of the study.
Correct.
Yeah. So
That's fine. We're getting ready to complete the first year's monitoring report for both the Fan Pier and Condor Street. And if you guys want those, we can definitely send those to you, as well as the first year report for this project when it's ready.
yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Elena, so that's it for me. Elena, did you have anything else?
Thank you. Yes. So just as a reminder to the commission, the commission has issued negative determinations for similar projects. As Chair Parker mentioned, one is in the Seaport, the other one is at the Condor Street Urban Wild in East Boston. And as I mentioned, we would also recommend including conditions related to waterside work. The part of the project, which I believe was mentioned in the presentation, is also the signage, and we have just confirmed that that's not going to be, it doesn't have any footings. It's not going to be, it doesn't require any excavation in the harbor walk, anything like that. We did not conduct an in-person site visit for this, but rather a virtual site visit, which is why there aren't additional photos in the drive.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sullivan, any questions?
You're muted.
I'm sorry, I'm muted, but my dog understands my question. I know low tide is a small time frame, but 4 to 6 weeks seems like an awful long time to bolt these things. You're pretty good at bolting them in the other spots. Any particular reason that long, or?
That was what we had proposed and said for the last 2 installations. I don't actually know how long it took them to put that in at the other 2 sites. I can certainly confirm that and get back to you if you want me to.
No, I was just curious if you knew the answer.
Yeah, I don't.
I thought you guys are experts at this stuff now. 2 bolts and bam.
Leslie, I'm happy to hop in and answer
Thanks,
Commissioner
Joe.
Sullivan's question if it's helpful.
Yeah.
John, great question, and you're right. We did have a great team through Woods Hole Group and some eco-engineering to do it, and each site took approximately a week, might have been up to 10 days at the site at Fan Pier, but yeah, it was no more than 10 days at both Condor Street Urban Wild and Fan Pier.
Okay. You're just covering yourselves.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson.
Yeah, the only thing I would have is a comment I was down at the Fan Pier site for Sail Boston, and there was a number of people that were remarking about that, asking questions amongst themselves, interacting with the signage, that sort of thing. So it's great to see the sort of there'll be other sites across the city, and one thing that might be cool, just once you guys produce those first annual reports, is see whether the different sites are performing differently and that sort of thing. So
yeah, that's great to hear that people are interested in what's going on. We will definitely give you those reports for the other 2 sites and be able to comment on what sorts of biological growth we've been seeing.
yeah, I mean, out of everything that was going on, that captured a lot of people's interests.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you're doing the right thing.
That's great. That's also encouraging to know that people actually notice the work that we sit here and do for 4 hours on Wednesday nights. So thank you for mentioning that. Commissioner Smargiassi.
Nothing further. Looking forward to the reports and maybe going down and seeing if anybody asks questions about the site at this location.
Yeah, yeah, we will each volunteer at all of your sites to answer any questions, Joe, if you ever need us. Commissioner Herbst?
Nothing from me. I'm set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Elena, I don't see any hands up. Did you get any emails?
No emails either, and nothing in the chat.
Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to issue a -2 determination of applicability, including standard erosion control conditions and waterside work conditions.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smargiassi?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So that carries 5-0. Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we're going to begin our regular meeting number 2. First item on the agenda, we have some requests for a certificate of compliances that are not ready for a vote. You can see them on the screen. It's Mattahunt Woods, Boston file number 2024-008, Olson Pool and Bochco parking lot renovations, DEP file number 0061762, and Boston file number 2021-003. And it looks like we are ready to vote for Charlestown Marina concrete deck repairs, DEP file number 0062123, and Boston file number 2026-023. Elena?
Thank you. Yes. So we conducted a site visit on July 30th for this project. Based on what we saw on site and what was provided in the filing, we believe that it would be appropriate to issue a complete certificate of compliance for the work with perpetual maintenance condition 5.4. One of the items that had come up during the hearing for this project was the question of how especially smaller debris would be contained, and apparently the method that they used of the constructed sort of plywood underneath the deck seemed to work quite well. Yeah, we have really nothing else of note.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any commissioners?
No.
Okay, thank you. So I would entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 0062123 and Boston file number 2026-023.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Smargiassi.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst.
Aye.
And I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, Elena, administrative updates. I think we only have one, which would be Franklin Park again.
That's correct. Yes.
Great. Okay, so let's invite the project team back in.
Perfect. And I did just want to flag that there are some materials in the drive folder for the commission. We had sent an email out earlier today, but in case you haven't had a chance to look at them, they should just be in, apologies, just pulling up the folder, in our regular administrative updates folder. And it's a PDF with 6 pages.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Luis, I think you're back, right?
Yes, after all the
Hopefully
you know,
we
sort of
had-
exciting coastal work that you all see, we're back at this extremely exciting maintenance yard.
I hope you had something to eat. Maybe
I
took a
did, I
nap.
did.
Okay, good.
Along with a lot of really great info from some of my colleagues at Parks.
Yeah.
So I am not sure, Elena or Dee Dee, if we can you know, sort of show the slides. So per our last conversation, we started developing a plan around the parking lot construction that, as we all know, was not constructed with the proper NOI permit, among other things. So what we started to do was develop a short-term, sort of intermediate, and then longer term approach to the parking lot and the immediate area around the yard, around the wetlands at the Franklin Park Maintenance Yard. So if you would like to go to the next slide, please. And then the next one. So, you know, what we started to contemplate is, you know, how do we sort of protect the wetlands? But furthermore, how do we go about ensuring that the area around it is functioning to the greatest extent possible, keeping in mind the health of the wetlands. So as you can see here, we are proposing to do some cleanup and pickup of debris around the wetland area, particularly the vegetated area around the perimeter of the larger wetland. We're also contemplating and looking at ways to modify and move the containers to make way for that parking area for staff, which is critical for our operations. So you can see we're looking at moving the smaller containers over to the other side, further away from the 100-foot buffer zone edge, page south, if you will. And then if you go to the next slide, looking at cleaning up the area of the wood chip pile, which is page north, and starting to establish delineation between the drive where our equipment is set up, as well as the wood chip pile is currently located, with some additional signage to help protect the wetlands behind it. As you may recall, in the NOI for the paddock, we are taking the area which has, I guess, the larger call out just beyond the northern 3 or 4 pieces of equipment. That area closest to the wetland is part of the restoration zone. So we're looking to put some of the concrete blocks there to help, keep operations in pavement, and then help protect the restoration area that's part of the paddock. And then, as we discussed last time, looking at removing that asphalt drive that dissected the wetlands, the small one from the larger one, and then restoring that area with seed, essentially develop greater hydrologic connection between the two. And then in the longer term, which we're still working through some of the details of the parking lot, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. We are looking at pulling back the parking lot away from that smaller wetland area just behind the paddock, or between the paddock and the parking lot. Redesigning the parking area and depaving the asphalt sections of the parking lot to the gravel with the plastic cells. We've also started looking at other areas just page south of the paddock where staff and other fleet vehicles could be parked, just to maximize the pavement we already have, as well as snow removal areas, which we learned a lot from this past winter. And according to our staff who removed snow at the yard, we lay most of the piles to the page left, so that longer strip that you see closest to Morton and Canterbury at the edge of the parking lot. Then if you go to the next slide, we'll show you some pictures of some work that we've already done this past weekend. So this is the area immediately adjacent to the paddock. Sort of, if you recall the plan, it's page south. The red shows what the conditions were, sort of overgrown, a lot of just debris that we dropped there over time. And then the green on the right-hand side just shows we've cleaned that area out, tossed a lot of the debris that was there, and then just, further organized that section. And the next slide shows, to the left, the wood chip pile as it was when you all visited, and then to the right center is where the log pile is, which will be the future restoration area of the paddock NOI, which we have removed all the logs, moved the Jersey barriers further out in preparation for larger intervention with the concrete blocks. We've also managed to place a Jersey barrier when you look at the picture all the way on the right at that asphalt drive, just to eliminate that desire path. And the goal is to continue blocking that area once we depave that drive and revegetate. So if you can imagine a future condition where the paddock is built and then there are a block wall that connects to the paddock area, limiting any future access through that section of the wetlands. Prior to this area being paved, trucks and other equipment would go through the bare earth to dump where the current staff parking lot is. Used to be a leaf pile, so they would cut through there to dump leaves. And so we're also trying to eliminate that desire line once we revegetate. So that's sort of where we are right now. We're still working on, you know, the layout of the parking lot to ensure that we're not losing parking spaces for our staff, and ensuring that we also have circulation around it. And if you go back to the slide where the parking lot is shown to be depaved, yes, that one. We're also, as you see in the red here, we're also working on how to best pull it back away from the paddock and make more room between the paddock and the parking lot. This section, I'm interested in getting some input from you all as it relates to the paddock NOI and that rear drive that's being proposed, and how we might merge the two plans. As we all discussed earlier, they're interconnected, but they're not, you know, we want to keep them separate enough. So with that, I welcome any input that you have on the current plans and any, you know, room for improvements.
Great, thank you. And impressed that you got a crew out there on the weekend and you've already started with some interventions here. So thank you for that. One question I had was that washout area that we observed in the parking lot when we were there. I think there is a picture in here that shows it. It might be the one where you have the Jersey barrier.
Yeah, if you go
blocking
to
the access road. I think it's right to the right of that. What's the thought there? I guess that would be part of the future work, right? When you pull back the parking spaces.
Yeah, exactly. So we
Okay.
would be looking at you know, I think with the gravel parking lot, you know, and the plastic cells, that stone will tend to stay in place, but we will have to figure out what the condition is to help keep sediment away from washing into the wetlands.
Okay.
So the Jersey barrier right now is a temporary condition to just remove that desire line, but we'll have something more permanent there to help block runoff and sediment from going into the wetlands.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Herbst, I think I'd like to get your input first here.
Could we just start with the first slide? Oops, yeah, this one. This all made sense to me. I wondered a little bit right now where you'll put a barrier up between the parking lot and the wetlands. How is stormwater, like where those cars are parked? What happens to it now? And will something different happen? Will it, with the Jersey barriers, like, are they actually going to be holding stormwater on the driveway, or is that captured some other way?
right now the Jersey barrier does sort of limit, stormwater from going through it, so it kind of disperses sideways, if you will. So the next iteration or more permanent iteration will have to really take into account how we capture all that sediment, really. And so we're still working through some of those details for the longer term condition. Right now, we're sort of using the materials that we have at the moment. I think we can certainly contemplate maybe looking at the temporary condition having a bit more porosity and sediment control. So, maybe some straw wattles in the meantime could be helpful. But that's how we're sort of seeing this at this moment.
I mean, I'll be interested in my fellow commissioners who know more about stormwater treatment, but one of my, I think, bigger concerns is if the parking lots don't have treatment, particularly the new one, I think doesn't have any treatment, and maybe doesn't anticipate any, that the idea that oils or whatever spills from cars would migrate, that is kind of a big issue, and I suspect it's a big ticket issue. So I'll leave that for other commissioners to speak to. Could we look at the next slide? So, taking out the road, I think that's terrific. And maybe let's just go to the next one. So I think I'm wondering about what intermediate and what long-term means, because I sort of assumed that if you're just pulling back and you've already sort of identified other places where you would let people park, that perhaps this red strip could happen. I was thinking more in the short term, and then and some kind of blockage there, to start to create some more room away from the wetlands there. And then this came up before. I'm not sure. I think I really actually don't understand why the 5-foot gravel was proposed, what purpose it serves. But again, sort of my interest was making that more naturalized. So I'm interested in having that conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I can answer the question about the intermediate and the long term. One thing that I also wanted to know is that with the depaving of the asphalt parking lot area, if you recall during the site visit, it is a very kind of, for lack of a better word, wonky, undulating grading for it. So we do envision the longer term parking lot solution to have some regrading happening there. So that's why we're sort of going with the intermediate. Let's remove the asphalt and restore the wetlands where we've dissected it. And then while we work on the longer term, which is again regrading, depaving, and peeling back that parking lot. And I think to your point, I think we could certainly keep looking at the area in red here, and have it be more naturalized.
I just timing wise, I thought maybe, and again, because I don't want to hold you up for another session, but just figuring out, does the gravel that you want to put in there that isn't there today, what purpose does that serve, and does it make sense given where things are heading? I don't know if anybody's still here from Weston and Sampson to speak to that, but
yeah, we do have Aaron as well as Shelley and James from Weston and Sampson. Aaron, Shelley, or James, you want to chime in a little bit on the gravel on the parking lot?
Yep, I'd be happy to speak a little bit about it. Well, the benefit of removing the bit-conk paving and replace it with gravel would be that it's going to introduce less runoff and far fewer contaminants towards the wetlands. in DEP's point of view in the stormwater handbook, gravel parking lots do not require stormwater treatment. So a lot of the hydrocarbons won't be washed off into the wetlands. It'll be cleaner runoff.
So in terms of gravel, I'm asking specifically about that 5-foot proposed sort of bank of gravel right next to the wetlands.
Well,
I'm trying
that
to
could be
understand.
eliminated if we were going to. I mean, we would redesign the entire area between the backside of the paddock and the parking lot after the removal of that first row of parking spaces.
So,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I cut you off, but Mike, is there any reason, is it serving a function now, given the changes like, would there be any reason to put it in now, given where you're heading? Does it have a function?
There would not be a reason to include it.
Okay.
I was under the understanding that the commission wanted the entire riprap maintained in there because it's currently filled with riprap between the parking lot and the fence of the stable.
Yeah, so I don't have an opinion about that. I'll be interested in what other commissioners think about what purpose it's serving. And I wasn't, I wasn't aware of if it's a gravel parking lot that it doesn't need treatment. So that's news to me. So that's helpful to know. And I also would just be interested in some of the other commissioners, whether that snow storage space that is still kind of upwards of the wetlands, does that seem okay for you?
And if I could also just add one quick comment and what you're referring to, I believe that wasn't in our original design, and someone else correct me if I'm wrong, but after the back and forth with the combined NOIs, we had added that in there as an additional protective measure. So I think that's something that up to your discretion, if you think that we should eliminate that. So thank you.
I think I'm just trying to understand if it is a protective measure or if it's just more encroachment pretty close to the wetlands. So that
I can also
I'll let others weigh in.
Apologies. I can maybe chime in on the gravel piece. I think that maybe the confusion on that is not so much that the commission wanted the gravel to stay, but more so that staff, upon conducting our site visit before we started the conversations about potentially pulling back the parking spaces, having the sort of the riprap area between the parking lot and the paddock seemed like at least one more protective measure. But I think now that we're in conversations about pulling back the parking area from the wetlands, I think that that's sort of no longer our priority. This was more so when we weren't imagining any changes happening to the parking lot.
I see. Okay, so yes, and then I think my questions will just be, how do we figure out what intermediate and long term is? What are we talking about? But I'll turn it over to others.
Okay. So yeah, so that's a good question. So I know that, Luis, we sent you off asking for interim, short-term and long-term parking lot solutions. So I'm not sure what you're pegging the timing to. So as far as pulling the parking lot back, when you're talking long-term there, what are you talking about?
That would likely be so long term is not something that would necessarily be done either in-house or with the paddock project. It would likely be a separate contract with a separate funding source that we would have to find to do that. So there's timing with the paddock project, right? Having a contractor on site to do some of this work is more immediate or intermediate. Long-term is when the horse paddock project can't pay for the configuration of the parking, and we can't design it to a final condition with, construction documents to be able to bid it out at the same time. So that's really the long term. We could do it sooner rather than later. I don't envision this being, 5 years away. It's just a matter of not really happening with the horse paddock project.
Okay, if we were going to put a timeline in an enforcement order, which would be the operating document here, what is your suggestion?
I would say, thinking about the parking lot, we would need to have the final design or conceptual design within the next month or so. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud here. We go through, I would say 2 years to, get the work done. Just to make sure we are doing everything appropriately and get the proper reviews and have additional conversations with you all.
Okay, that's helpful. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree 100%, removing Bitconk and putting in gravel parking lot. Life got better. We consider gravel parking lots, except for the first couple of months after you put them in, equal to immediate runoff, impervious runoff. It depends what you're calling gravel parking lot.
Yeah, maybe if we can advance, we have one slide that shows like gravel is not the let's see, maybe one more after this.
So while Shelley's advancing that, let me just explain. We're not talking about just plain
Yep, here we
gravel. We're actually talking about like plastic unit pavers that have gravel infill. So it's more of like a pervious pavement system rather than just.
Well,
Yeah, you can see that here.
Yeah, no, that's my point. So it's not gravel because all of us that work, any kind of construction, you hot pack gravel and give it a season. That's like concrete, for crying out loud, and the runoff will just be the same. If you do something as you show here with the plastic with the cracked stone that can take water and put it down below, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, and this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, so maybe we ought to change the word gravel.
Yeah.
Because as everybody was talking gravel, I'm saying that ain't gonna make it. This is different, what you're showing here.
We can certainly change that. And one piece of info here is that, so we have the cell, we have, those plastic cells infilled with smaller, stone. And then just below the gravel cell, we have probably 3/4 inch stone. So there's quite a bit of infiltration actually. When rain falls, you can visibly see it just going in. So we'll modify and we'll actually show some details too the next time around. So you could see the sort of the sandwich.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just, when I was having you talk about gravel and how wonderful it is, I'm saying that don't count. And the other thing is, in general, do we have a whole slope pattern of this yard? I know what it looks like. I've driven by it a bunch of times. Do you have a pretty good sense of the topographic layout of the entire site?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested in taking a look at that, in a scale that I could read. When someone wants to blow something by us, they make sure everything fits on 8.5 by 11, all 37 acres. But I don't disagree then, if you're taking up Bitconk, putting down this type of pervious landscape will go a long way of controlling runoff and any pollutants going to the wetlands. So that was going to be my only comment. So nice job tricking me. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, I started pulling on a thread and just never good at 9:15 at night. But there was some allusions to prior site history, prior site operations management, stuff like that. And I'm just starting to get my head wrapped around that. And I guess the one thing that I don't know whether we want to be explicitly clear about that, but in terms of like just looking at the Google Earth history, there has been attempts at sort of normalizing this and, sort of there's ad hoc maintenance practices. Then there's clearly attempts to sort of gravel it out
things become rutted, they get backfilled in with dirt again and everything like that. And obviously this is a new crew and we're turning over a new leaf. But I'm just trying to understand that, like, is how this wouldn't be sort of just another evolution, but sort of another chapter.
You're suggesting what can we write into the order that improves?
That's what I don't know is, but like I'm looking at like satellite photos in 2024 where there's like some sort of like storage container-ish things that are being located in the middle of a newly paved road, and like there's
So
Commissioner
yeah.
Wilson, I could chime in a little bit here.
Well, maybe Luis, before you
yeah.
do, let me just make an observation that we talked about before.
I might have missed the first part of the conversation in some other meeting, but
yeah, no, I don't think you did. I think this is complicated. I think this is like any other enforcement action. Okay, so it's popped up on the radar. This was a self-audit, self-reported, which is great. And
appreciate it.
so, we put in the enforcement order. In this case, I think we discussed this last meeting, or maybe it was on the site visit. This is a really 3 to 5 year effort here. I expect that Elena and Dee Dee and others in the future will be collaborating and be at this yard, annually every 6 months when they're driving by, because this is again going to take a little while because there are a lot of things here that need to be cleaned up, and I think Luis is suggesting that this parking lot project could be more than a year. Maybe 2 years.
Sure,
So
that's sort of why I'm bringing it up at the meeting rather than at the.
Yeah, I think that's right. I because I agree with you. We just say to Luis, hey, we'd like to see these measures done now, and then we walk away and never go back. He's going to move on. He's going to become the next, let's say, commissioner of the DPW, and his predecessors will forget all about these conversations. So I envision it that way, that this is a long-term collaboration. And Luis, I'm sorry, I cut you off, so you go ahead. And,
no, that's okay. I think you kind of touched on that, as I had mentioned in the previous meeting, right? Multiple generations of commissioners, yard masters, expansion of our crew and capabilities, right? We have a pretty robust urban forestry division, which we did not have a few years ago, right? And these buildings at the maintenance yard they were built in the early 1900s. They weren't built for this type of equipment. So we run into a lot of storage issues. And that's why, you're seeing we're sort of trying to find all these different pockets within the yard to store stuff. And unfortunately, we've gone a little bit too far into the wetlands and trying to find these corners. So all this to say is that my role as executive director of Franklin Park did not exist and is now one that will sit at Franklin Park at the maintenance yard. And if it's not me, someone else will. So my hope is that someone will continue to have an eye on this along with the Conservation Commission. And when we make pretty significant investments, we don't necessarily want to undo those. So the parking lot itself is a fairly large investment in our staff parking. So it's hard to see a future where that would just go away for something else.
No, for sure. I'm just, this is me getting caught up to sort of the things that you had alluded to. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of me doing my own research. So
I wonder though if there's something more permanent in writing that we can have, like an agreement of some sort where we just are committed to collaborating.
Yeah, I think we would put that in the enforcement order. That's what I'm anticipating. So it's something that we can enforce. basically.
Yeah,
Not that we don't trust you. Obviously, we really appreciate your efforts, but you're going to have successors.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
so
understandable.
okay.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Of course.
Okay, Commissioner Herbst, any? I guess we have to wrap this up. What are you thinking?
Oh, you got
Commissioner Estes-Margiazzi.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I jumped over you. You were
You got
talking.
10 points of questions.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
happy to be jumped over at this hour. If Commissioner Hertz has any observations, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe some, it's a staff or somebody, we need to write up sort of a suggested enforcement order to talk about, and that can, I don't think any of us have the brains for it tonight to figure out, at least I don't, about how to go forward. But I feel like in terms of the notice of intent, I personally would feel like that could go forward next week. I think with the understanding, unless any of the other commissioners think there's reason to have that, 5-foot gravel strip there now, that I would just suggest that they take it out and we'll figure out, what the plan should be for the parking lot.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
So-
Luis, the 5-foot strip, are we losing that, right?
Yeah. And when you mean the 5-foot strip, it's just that gravel strip that's directing stormwater into the wetlands in the NOI, or are you referring to the drive that goes up to the rear of the paddock?
I'm talking about and I don't even think it's directing. I think it was maybe.
It was just added there. Okay. Yeah, that can go away. That can go away for sure.
It's closest to the
Yeah.
wetlands itself.
And that sort of leads to my, and I'm sorry to keep you all a little bit more than you probably want, but would like to understand what your thoughts are so we can prepare for the NOI next time. How do you feel about that drive and how we should show it, right? If the parking lot is peeling back, but we're not going to be 100% sure on how far back we're going to peel it back, how would it be best to show it to make you all feel comfortable? And we can get creative and show things, but I also want to be,
I guess I was thinking that all you would need to do is take out that 5-foot gravel thing that didn't seem to make sense, and that the parking lot isn't relevant for your NOI, and we know we're working on a plan, and I think that's all we need. I think we basically need it seemed like people were comfortable with everything you proposed, so we need this will happen by this date, this will, you'll give us plans to approve for how the parking lot will be designed by this date. I think that's what we need to come up with. Does that make sense to you, Chair Parker?
Yeah, it does, with one minor modification. I think, Luis, from a conceptual standpoint, if it could be depicted that portion of the parking lot to be removed, I think I'd like to see that on a plan that's filed with us in the NOI. It just gives us a little bit more of a backing here. And expectations.
And when you say this section to be removed as part of the NOI or by others at a later
future
date?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Just wanted to confirm.
Exactly. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. And
also,
Commissioner Herbst's comment, I think that's right. I think we have enough now with the visuals and the discussion we've had to draft an enforcement order to send to you that will allow you to comment on. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. But Ellen, I guess I would ask you as far as your we had a lot of NOIs this week. As far as your capacity to draft something.
Absolutely. My recommendation was going to be that we work on drafting the enforcement order. we can run it by not a quorum of commissioners before the next hearing, make sure that it seems to be on point with what we've discussed over the last few hearings. If it is looking like we're moving in the right direction with it, we can share it with Luis and your team to make sure that it seems to, everybody's on the same page. And then that way it would hopefully be ready for ratification at the September 2nd hearing.
Great. Okay, good.
One thought about sort of wanting to make this an ongoing thing I mean, something simple, there's probably could be something better, but it would just be to say, we'll do an annual, review, come before the commission and talk about how the project looks or do a site visit, whatever, something like that.
Absolutely. I guess my main question is whether it seems like too much to sort of write into the enforcement order that maybe, commission staff and parks would continue having these conversations and then it would just come to the commission on an annual basis. Or if that, if that's just kind of understood.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that to that point, I was envisioning very similar to what we do when we set up an environmental monitor. I think we did that around the salt marsh. I mean, language, to that effect that, you'll be there, every however is best for staff and capacity to get reports. Maybe first year it's quarterly or biannually, and then after that it's yearly. Let's say once the parking lot situation is rectified, but I think it's something like that.
Perfect. And we can sort of write in a general timeline for next steps, spanning a number of years, and also make a note that, this might be subject to change with the mutual understanding of both the commission and the project team.
Absolutely. As with every enforcement order, changing conditions, we don't want to be locked into.
That sounds great.
One stance now. Yep. Okay, good. Okay, so sounds like we have a plan. I don't think we need a vote on this. We're just asking you to draft the EO.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Elena, I guess we'll have to send you like updated plans and some updated narratives before the next meeting for the NOI. Is it my correct understanding? Okay.
Yes. So I think removing that 5-foot gravel driveway, and I believe that's really it, in addition to having some sort of figure that reflects the future conditions of having the parking spaces pulled back.
Okay, great. I'll make sure we make those changes and I get you those hard copies.
Perfect. And I can also follow up with an email with more specific sort of, ideal deadlines, and then last, like latest possible deadline.
Thank you so much.
Great. Okay. Commissioner Herbst, anybody else want to extend this hearing?
Not me.
When I put it that way.
Yeah,
okay.
just try it. I'm watching you all. Just try it.
I know. Okay. Well, thank you. Luis, thank you. Thank you to Weston Sampson team, Kevin. It's been a long night. I think we've made a lot of progress. So thank you very much. We just have a few things. Elena, no more admin updates?
Nope, this was it.
Okay, so let's go to meeting minutes for August 5th, 2026. Hussein did a fantastic job on them. A couple of very minor edits. If there are no other comments from any commissioners, I would entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of August 5th, 2026.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Well, second.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Everyone's asleep. Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson? Commissioner Estes Margiazzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Carries 4-0. Commissioner Wilson abstained. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Yep, I'll make that one.
Okay, thank you. I mean, if I had to spend this night doing this, I'm happy as with you all. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Night.
Have a good night.
Night.